Our story begins with a man who made one offhand comment about married life, only to find himself reborn from a lifelong bachelor into the body of a complete scoundrel. This man was an abusive lowlife who somehow married a famous pop star, and together they had a sweet, obedient little daughter. But ever since the wedding, his life spiraled until he was fired from his job, leading him to blame his wife for his own misfortune. We see him looking at his new reality, realizing his predecessor was a true villain. Meanwhile, the mother and daughter tremble on the sofa after a recent outburst. Shin Yuchu holds her child tightly, and seeing him staring at her, she instinctively pulls little Wanwan closer into her arms. Tears fill her eyes, for while she has dreamt of taking Wanwan and leaving, she is an orphan with nowhere to go and no money of her own. Every cent they have is controlled by this man she considers a demon, who now sighs deeply, deciding to accept this strange new life. He slowly stands up and flicks on the switch, letting a warm orange light fill the room and illuminate the scene before him. Looking at the chaotic mess, he scratches his head in silence before opening a window for fresh air and beginning to clear away the empty liquor bottles. Shin Yuchu remains huddled on the sofa with Wanwan, unmoving, though a flicker of pure astonishment crosses her eyes at his behavior. He doesn't dare disturb the mother and daughter just yet, choosing instead to grab a towel from the kitchen and scrub the table until the room is spotless. By the time the house is clean, he is drenched in sweat, so he grabs some fresh clothes from the bedroom and heads into the bathroom. As the bathroom door shuts, Shin Yuchu finally allows her tense body to relax, exhaling a breath she had been holding in terror. She gazes at the clean room with intense disbelief, wondering how this demon could have suddenly changed his nature, just as little Wanwan whispers that she's hungry. Shin Yuchu gently strokes her daughter's hair, telling her to be patient and promising that she will cook something very soon. In this house, she can only cook for herself and the child once he has gone to sleep. But then, the bathroom door swings open and he steps out. The mother and daughter shrink back into the worn sofa together, but he simply shakes his head and walks straight out the front door without a word. Shin Yuchu freezes, her eyes filling with despair as she assumes he has gone out to buy more alcohol, as if he hadn't drunk enough already. She fears she and Wanwan will have to go hungry for another night, and she bites her lip as tears begin to fall uncontrollably. Little Wanwan begs her mother not to cry, claiming she isn't hungry at all, heartrendingly believing that her own hunger is what caused her mother's pain. Seeing her mother cry, little Wanwan reaches out with her tiny, tender hands to clumsily wipe Shin Yuchu's face, while Yuchu bites her lip in pain. Her tears only fall harder, and after a long silence, she finally speaks in a trembling, gentle voice, asking Wanwan to be good and let her tuck her in. She tells the child that once she's asleep, she won't feel the hunger anymore, promising to wake up early and make something delicious. To be honest, it's a heartbreaking promise. The little girl agrees, telling her mother not to cry, as Shin Yuchu begins softly humming a lullaby to soothe her to sleep. We watch as Wanwan slowly closes her eyes. As the child drifts off, Shin Yuchu reflects on the bitterness of the last 2 years of marriage. Deep down, she finally makes a firm decision. She decides she will leave this hell tomorrow. Even dying on the streets would be better than being tormented by this demon. Suddenly, the sound of the front door lock clicks. Lost in her thoughts, Shin Yuchu can't stop herself from trembling again. She instinctively covers Wanwan's ears, quietly listening to the movements outside. Our protagonist pushes the door open and looks toward the sofa, only to find it empty. He realizes they must have retreated to the bedroom. He notes they haven't eaten yet, staring at the food in his hands for a moment before setting it on the table and heading toward the bedroom. Inside, Shin Yuchu's body is rigid with tension. She hears his footsteps approaching the door and prays silently that he won't come in. But a moment later, his voice comes through the door, telling them he bought some food and that they should come out if they are hungry. He adds that he will find somewhere else to sleep tonight. Hearing this, Shin Yuchu's eyes snap open in pure shock. She hears his footsteps gradually fading away until the house falls silent again, leaving only the sound of her own nervous breathing echoing in the room. Wanwan, who had opened her eyes at some point, clearly heard his voice and is now staring curiously at the closed door. It seems this smelly father isn't coming in to sleep tonight, and he even mentioned food. At the mere thought of a meal, the little girl feels her hunger return. She swallows hard, looking at her mother with eyes full of expectation. Shin Yuchu looks down at her daughter, unable to ignore that silent plea. Summoning her courage, she tiptoes to the bedroom door and cracks it open. Immediately, the savory aroma of fresh food wafts into the room. Shin Yuchu's eyes well up with tears. He actually did it. He really bought food for them, which, naturally, was the last thing she expected. Faced with this sudden kindness, she doesn't feel joy, but a deep, visceral fear. She wonders what he could possibly want from her now. Meanwhile, little Wanwan trots over on her bare feet, peering through the gap in the door to see what lies outside. Suddenly, little Wanwan's eyes light up, and she can't help but start drooling at the scent. However, she doesn't move on her own, instead looking up. With her big eyes blinking as she gazes at her mother, Shin Yuchu takes a deep breath, forcing a small smile onto her face as she picks Wanwan up, whispering for her to be quiet so they can eat. Wanwan hurriedly nods her little head in agreement. Inside the other room, our protagonist hears the movements outside and lets out a heavy sigh. After a moment, he begins to think. After buying those meals, he realized that the family's entire savings have dwindled down to a mere 1,800 yuan. To be honest, it's a dire situation. He needs to make money. Suddenly, he sits up straight, realizing he hadn't considered the most obvious advantage. He is in a parallel world. Feeling a surge of excitement, he grabs his phone and begins scrolling through it. After a while, a confident smile spreads across his face. This world is exactly as he remembered. The cultural heritage and the entertainment industry are completely different from his original world. He notes that even mediocre, repetitive songs are topping the charts. He grips his phone tightly, his mind racing as he searches for a plan. One by one, classic songs from his previous life begin to surface in his memory. But as he thinks, exhaustion finally catches up with him. Dragging his tired body to bed, he slowly drifts off to sleep. The next morning at 6 o'clock sharp, he quietly opens the door and leaves the bedroom. He sees the dining table and kitchen have been cleaned until they are spotless. Shin Yu-chu must have tidied up after eating last night. After a brief pause, he tiptoes into the bathroom to wash up. He knows that Shin Yu-chu usually doesn't get up to cook until 8 in the morning. In the past, he would sleep until 10, and the mother and daughter were only allowed to eat his leftovers after he finished drinking. It was a cruel routine. He sighs again instinctively while washing up quickly. Inside the bedroom, Shin Yu-chu is actually already awake, but she is too afraid to go out. She listens as the sounds from the bathroom stop, followed by the front door opening and closing. She bites her lip, staring at the bedroom door. She wonders what he's up to now that he's left so early. After waiting for a long time and hearing no further movement, the house remains silent. Shin Yu-chu looks at little Wanwan, who is still fast asleep, and summons the courage to quietly slip out of bed and open the door. The smell of alcohol in the living room has faded significantly, replaced by the fresh morning air blowing in through the window. It smells wonderful. The atmosphere feels surreal to her. It has been a very long time since she smelled anything so clean and fresh in this home. She walks to the window and gazes at the world outside, lost in thought, until she suddenly remembers she is only 24 years old. After some time, the sound of a door startled Shin Yu-chu, waking her from her daze as she instinctively tenses up and turns around mechanically. Our protagonist stands there, equally stunned to find that Shin Yu-chu is already awake. After washing up, he noticed the pantry was empty, so he went out to buy meat, vegetables, and rice. Now, they both stand there frozen. In this moment, he finally gets a clear look at his wife's face. She is beautiful, far more so than any celebrity in his original world. However, she is painfully thin, and her face is unnaturally pale, likely due to severe malnutrition. Seeing this, his heart fills with pain, regret, and a deep sense of shame. To mistreat such a wonderful wife, he feels he truly deserves his own self-loathing. "Good morning. I'll go start cooking," he says, finally breaking the awkward silence before hurrying into the kitchen with the groceries. Shin Yu-chu can hardly believe her ears or her eyes. He actually greeted her, and besides, since when did he ever learn how to cook? She watches his busy silhouette in the kitchen in silence, a wave of immense grievance washing over her heart. She bites her lip hard as her eyes well up. Is this pity, she wonders, or a sudden spark of conscience? Just then, little Wanwan wakes up, finding her mother gone. She runs out barefoot, her tiny nose immediately catching the delicious scent of food. She turns her wide eyes toward the kitchen. From inside, he naturally spots the little one and gives her a warm, wide smile. Unexpectedly, Wanwan shrinks back in fear behind Shin Yu-chu. He rubs his nose helplessly, and soon, the meal is ready. He looks at the two of them standing cautiously in the distance and says, "Wash up and come eat." Wanwan is clearly swallowing her saliva, yet she doesn't move. Shin Yu-chu watches the scene with a hint of terror. He had been hopeful, but seeing their defensive posture, that hope sinks to the bottom of his heart. He falls silent for a moment, sighs, and speaks again. "You two eat first," he says, before heading into the bathroom. Shin Yu-chu doesn't move until she hears the door click shut. She looks at the longing in her daughter's eyes and sighs inwardly. "Wanwan, let's go eat." On the table sits the millet porridge he prepared. It is golden and inviting, accompanied by 2 side dishes and a small bowl of steamed egg. The moment she sees the egg, Wanwan's eyes light up. Her face lights up instantly. "Mom, did Daddy make this for me?" she asks. Shin Yu-chu finds herself at a loss for words. Looking at her daughter's hopeful eyes, she finally nods, and Wanwan's gaze brightens even more. The little girl can't wait to take a spoonful of the steamed egg. "This is the first time Daddy cooked for me. It's so delicious." Shin Yu-chu eats in silence, her heart a mess of struggle and confusion as her eyes drift unconsciously toward the closed door of the side room. Inside, he sits at the desk, starving but knowing that the two of them aren't ready to share a table with him just yet. He shakes those heavy thoughts away and pulls out his phone. He navigates to a social platform and deletes his old account, which had only a few thousand followers. After registering a new account, he habitually checks the trending charts. In the next moment, his brow furrows in genuine distaste. What kind of garbage music is this? Since when did such low-effort songs dominate the trending lists? He makes a decision and pulls out some old, dusty manuscript paper that had been tucked away. These belonged to Shin Yuchu. He spreads the paper across the desk, his pen flying as he begins writing out. Guitar tabs. In his original world, he was a professional songwriter. A bit of interdimensional moving is no trouble at all. In just a short while, a complete musical score sits before him. Eagerly, he digs an old guitar out from the side of the wardrobe. He sits at the desk, cradling the instrument, and takes a moment to find the right emotion. He closes his eyes and gently sweeps his fingers across the strings. As the music drifts out of the room, Shin Yuchu freezes mid-bite. He can play the guitar? That's impossible. She knows that guitar is hers, and she knows. He never knew how to play, at least, not before. But now, as the melody continues, his voice begins to follow. Shin Yuchu is utterly stunned, her eyes filled with disbelief. Even little Wanwan, who was eating so happily, is captivated by the sound. She stops her spoon and looks toward the closed door, her large eyes blinking in wonder. Wanwan tilts her head, listening intently. She recognizes the voice of the father who just cooked for her for the very first time. The melody is so gentle. Even though Shin Yuchu has never heard this song before, she can sense its power. Such a beautiful melody. It's hard for her to imagine these sounds coming from him. But as the next line of the song begins, she starts to break down. She is lost once more, caught between her fear of the future and her fear of this man's sudden change. She worries this is all a cruel dream. At that moment, the singing stops. Little Wanwan notices her mother's tears and, in a panic, climbs onto Shin Yuchu's lap. She reaches out with her tiny hands, trying her best to wipe the tears away. Don't cry, mommy. Wanwan will blow on the pain. The little girl assumes. Her mother is hurting again. While wiping the tears, she lifts her small face and pulls at Shin Yuchu's collar to blow on her skin. Beneath that collar, we see that Shin Yuchu's back is covered in scars. He, of course, has no idea what his song has stirred up outside. At this moment, he opens his account and clicks to record a video. He doesn't show his full face in the frame, only the area below his nose. He cradles the guitar and clears his throat. This time, he is far more serious as he performs the song in its entirety. Once the song ends, he saves the recording and trims away the silence at the beginning and the end. Finally, he extracts the audio, adds the lyrics, and submits the copyright ownership online. Only after everything is settled does he edit a title, All My Life With You, an original song for everyone. I hope you like it. Please like and support. The video uploads successfully. He lets out a long, weary sigh, thinking to himself that the first step is finally complete. Now, he just has to wait for the public's reaction. In this era, a song like this is a guaranteed hit. He puts the guitar back and feels his empty, growling stomach. He wonders if the two of them have finished eating yet. To be honest, he is absolutely starving. Rubbing his stomach, he can't wait any longer. He pushes the door open just a crack, peering out like a thief in his own home. He happens to see Shin Yuchu carrying Wanwan away from the table. Her eyes are red, looking as though she has just been crying. She clearly sees him too. After a brief, stunned silence, she quickly carries the child back into the master bedroom. He breathes a sigh of relief and walks to the table. Finally, he can eat. Seeing the food they left for him, he feels a flicker of joy. He picks up the bowl of millet porridge and begins to eat hungrily, clearing every plate on the table before starting the dishes. After finishing his meal, he takes a slow walk around the apartment to study the layout. It is a modest two-bedroom home, barely 50 square meters in size. This was the place they bought together when they first married, though the interior decorations and furniture have now begun to look quite worn and dilapidated. He shakes his head and sinks into the sofa, finding it hard to imagine how Shin Yuchu and the child survived in such a suffocating atmosphere for 2 years without ever leaving. It must have felt like a prison. He knows he cannot change everything in a single day, so he curls up on the small sofa and begins scrolling through his phone, searching for how to maintain a home and how to make a child happy, essentially, how to be a good father. The online answers are a chaotic mess that leaves him feeling quite overwhelmed. Just then, the master bedroom door creaks open. He looks toward the sound and sees a tiny head peeking out. Little Wanwan tilts her head, staring at him with the same large, almond-shaped eyes as her mother. Those bright, crystal-clear eyes are filled with curiosity and innocence, and we see his heart begin to melt. However, Wanwan's face is far too thin, just like her mother's. If she were a bit more well-fed, she would surely look even more adorable. But of course, this mother and daughter have been living on leftovers for a long time. The previous version of himself never gave them any money, leaving them to skip meals constantly. Seeing Wanwan, a smile instinctively begins to form on his face. But before his lips can even curve, Wanwan is so frightened that she slams the door shut and scurries back inside. From within, we hear the muffled sound of Shin Yuchu comforting the child. His smile freezes, and he rubs his nose awkwardly. Time slips quietly by, until noon arrives. He puts down his phone and stands up, realizing it is time to cook lunch. At that exact moment, the bedroom door opens. An expressionless Shin Yuchu emerges, clutching a pile of laundry. She acts as if he isn't even standing there by the sofa and walks straight toward the bathroom. He notices her body stiffen for a split second as she passes him. Is she going to do the laundry? He suddenly remembers that the clothes he changed out of yesterday are still sitting in the washing machine. Realizing this, he quickly follows her toward the bathroom. Deep down, Shin Yuchu is incredibly nervous. She didn't expect him to still be home, as usually, by this hour, he would be out with his so-called friends getting drunk. Hearing his footsteps approaching her, her heart races and her small frame begins to tremble slightly. My clothes are still in the machine. Could I take them out to dry first? He asks, as she leans over to open the washer. Standing by the door, Shin Yuchu is startled, her body recoiling into the bathroom as she shrinks away from him. He can't help but tell her to be careful. It takes a moment for Shin Yuchu to realize he is actually asking for her permission. Her eyes flicker away, not daring to meet his gaze. She whispers that he can go ahead, her fists clenched tightly and her hands trembling. He, meanwhile, feels a surge of silent frustration and heartache. He had just seen them clearly, the purple and red bruises marking the skin beneath Shin Yuchu's collar. It is a grim sight, to be sure. He gathers his clothes from the machine without looking at her again, simply mentioning that he'll make lunch and she should call Wanwan to eat. Shin Yuchu shrinks back further, murmuring that Wanwan is asleep and he should be the one to wake her later. She seems utterly flustered. Knowing his presence only causes her stress, he rubs his nose helplessly and takes his laundry out of the machine. It is a small, awkward gesture. He moves quickly to the balcony to hang the clothes before heading into the kitchen. Inside the bathroom, Shin Yuchu remains frozen, clutching her laundry. She only snaps out of her daze when the sounds of cooking drift from the kitchen. Trembling, she finally places her own clothes into the washing machine. Her gaze drifts toward the kitchen as she wonders what has happened to him. Subconsciously, Shin Yuchu reaches up and rubs her own nose. She freezes again, realizing she is mimicking him. Since when did he have that habit? She remains there, standing before the spinning washing machine. She listens to the rhythmic hum of the drum, her heart a tangled mess of emotions. Once the cycle finishes, she takes the clothes to the balcony. While she hangs the laundry, the man remains busy in the kitchen, working with a focused energy. Little Wanwan doesn't wait to be called. She wakes up on her own. The little girl rubs her sleepy eyes with her tiny hands, still half lost in a daze. A moment later, she spots the figure working away in the kitchen. Her beautiful, large eyes light up instantly. Driven by curiosity, she leans against the kitchen doorframe, watching his back as he cooks. Shin Yuchu turns back from the balcony and witnesses this scene. Little Wanwan watching with pure anticipation while he busies himself in the kitchen. The sight is almost too much for Shin Yuchu to bear. Her composure shatters, and she quickly turns away to lean against the wall. She covers her face with her hands and slowly sinks to the floor, tears falling silently. This was a scene she had only ever seen in her distant dreams. Once again, he chooses not to sit at the table with them. After setting the food down, he hurries out of the house, leaving them to eat in peace. His own emotions are so complex that even he doesn't quite understand them. The meal is just as delicious as breakfast, and the little one enjoys every bite. The little girl is happily eating her steamed egg, but the mother and daughter's peaceful lunch is soon interrupted by the sound of the door opening. Subconsciously, we see them both look up as he walks in, carrying a large bag of items. Little Wanwan immediately huddles closer to Shin Yuchu, her tiny body tensing up at his arrival. With her small spoon still in her mouth, her large eyes follow his every move. He, however, keeps his gaze lowered, not daring to look directly at the frightened pair. He simply walks to the sofa, sets the bag down, and finally speaks. He tells her that he bought some ointment and asks her to remember to use it. He also mentions that he bought a toy for the child, though he admits he isn't sure if she will like it. To be honest, he was just guessing. He explains that since other little girls have toys, she should have one too. Shin Yuchu offers no response, and after a brief, heavy silence, he continues speaking. He acknowledges that she likely won't believe him, but he insists on saying it anyway. He won't drink anymore, and he will never hit them again. He tells her that she and Wanwan shouldn't be so afraid at home, noting that such a tense atmosphere is bad for a growing child. Having said his piece all at once, he feels the heavy weight in his chest lift slightly. Without waiting for a reply, he quietly walks back into the side bedroom. Shin Yuchu watches his figure disappear, and as the door closes, she finds herself utterly at a loss for words. In just one day, she has faced a complete transformation in this man, yet she finds it impossible to let her guard down. Inside the bedroom, meanwhile, he feels even worse. His eyes are rimmed with red, a clear sign that he had been crying while he was out. At this moment, he almost wishes he hadn't traveled to this world or learned about everything that happened here. Seeing the bruises on Shin Yuchu's body has left his heart feeling heavy, nearly to the point of collapse. He truly cannot fathom how anyone could harbor such malice toward their own family. After they finish eating, they leave some food for him. When he eventually leaves his room, he notices the bag on the coffee table remains untouched. He presses his lips together and sighs, realizing it will take time. He sits down to eat in silence, but suddenly, the door to the master bedroom opens. Little Wanwan pokes her small head out, staring at him with curiosity. He quickly forces a wide, gentle smile for her. This time, remarkably, she doesn't run away in fear. It is a small victory, but a significant one. He feels a sense of relief, his depressed heart healed slightly by the sight of the little one. Putting down his chopsticks, he uses his gentlest voice to softly call out Wanwan's name. His voice causes her to flinch slightly, but she doesn't retreat. Instead, she glances back into the bedroom behind her. As if receiving some silent encouragement, she looks back at him. Then, a tender, soft child's voice finally reaches his ears. Hearing that small voice, his entire body trembles and his eyes instantly well up with tears. To be honest, it is the most beautiful sound he has heard since arriving in this world. Little Wanwan tilts her head, watching his tearful smile with confusion. He nods firmly and stands to pull the doll out of the shopping bag. He holds the toy out, shaking it gently toward her. In Wanwan's large eyes, we see a flicker of curiosity. She looks at the doll, then back at the bedroom, before finally, very slowly, shuffling toward him. At this moment, his heart beats like a drum, terrified of scaring the little one who is finally approaching him. She reaches his side, lifts her face, and takes a deep sniff. A second later, she breaks into a happy smile, noting that her father doesn't smell bad anymore. He asks if she likes the doll. Her small hands twitch, wanting to take it but not quite daring to, her dark eyes fixed intently on him. Understanding her hesitation, he slowly crouches down to her level and gently places the toy in her hands. Little Wanwan finally accepts the gift. As her tiny fingers brush the doll's dress, her eyes crinkle into crescents of pure joy. Watching her delight, he feels a complex swirl of emotions, especially when he sees her thin face and the faded, undersized clothes she wears. It feels like a needle piercing his heart. She is only 3 years old, after all. He grits his teeth to stay composed, quickly wipes away his tears, and forces a smile just to watch her play. In this moment, nothing else in the world matters. Meanwhile, inside the master bedroom, Shin Yuchu hears her daughter's bell-like laughter and finds herself moved to tears. Not long after, things begin to escalate rapidly. By 10 o'clock that night, his video has somehow clawed its way to 5th place on the trending list. At the Douyin headquarters, the office door of operations director Li Xia is thrown open. A technician, clutching a tablet and dripping with sweat, rushes in. He reports a special situation. A video has hit the top 5 in just 2 hours. Xia tells him to stay calm, asking which big influencer has caused a stir this time. The technician explains it isn't a celebrity, but a new account registered today. Furthermore, the video received no promotional boost. It is simply a song. Hearing this, Xia's expression shifts instantly. She opens the trending list, and her surprise deepens. It has already climbed to 4th. She decides to hear this song for herself, and once it ends, Xia falls into a complete silence. It is the most beautiful song she has ever heard. She immediately clicks his profile and sees his name, Buffon. Immediately after, she orders Lu Yun to push the video's traffic right now, ensuring it hits #1 tomorrow. Lu Yun nods vigorously, knowing her gamble paid off. After she leaves, Li Xia listens to the song once more, her fingers tapping the desk. A moment later, she sends Buffon a private message, though he remains completely unaware. He is already up at 5 to exercise. To be honest, this body is in worse shape than he imagined. He is gasping for air after only a short run. By 7:30, he finally finishes 5 kilometers and returns home, bumping right into Shin Yuchu as she finishes washing up. Water droplets cling to her hair, and she jumps in surprise at his sight. He pauses, awkwardly asking if Wanwan is still asleep. He suggests she go watch the child while he showers and cooks, asking her if there is anything specific she wants to eat. She tells him anything is fine before fleeing back into the bedroom, as if she were escaping a predator, which, perhaps, is understandable. He can only shrug helplessly at the closed door. After his shower, he is starving, and the original body's alcohol cravings begin to flare. He desperately gulps down hot water while cooking to soothe the urge. Just then, Wanwan appears, clutching her new doll. She leans against the kitchen doorframe, watching him. He turns, sees the little one, and immediately breaks into a warm smile. He asks what she wants for breakfast, and after a long moment of thought, she softly replies that she loves steamed eggs. He agrees with a doting smile. He reaches out to pat her small head, but hesitates, afraid of startling her. He pulls his hand back quietly. There is no rush. The fact that Wanwan is accepting him at all gives him immense hope. His mood improves so much that even his hunger and cravings seem to vanish. He places breakfast on the table and, as usual, retreats to his small room so the mother and daughter can eat in peace. This time, however, he hears laughter from outside. Lying on his bed, he picks up his muted phone to check the video's progress. But the moment he unlocks the screen, he is absolutely stunned. He stares at the mountain of notifications, swallowing hard as he clicks on his profile page. The sight of over 1 million followers nearly blinds him. Trembling with excitement, he checks the video stats, 2 million likes, and nearly 1 million comments. He can't stop smiling. He has become a sensation overnight, and the comments are filled with praise. The comments are flooded with praise, and everyone is begging for a new song. Next, we see the moment of truth as Buffon opens his digital wallet. The numbers on the screen make his jaw drop, a staggering 320,000 yuan. Without any ads, just from traffic in a single day, he earned that much while he was sleeping. He finally breathes a sigh of relief. With this money, life won't be so suffocatingly tight anymore. Remember, he previously only had 1,000 yuan to his name, barely enough for groceries. He quickly transfers the earnings to his bank card. Once the two of them finish eating outside, he steps out of his room to finish the leftovers. After washing the dishes, he grabs his phone and heads out. He lives in an old, dilapidated neighborhood they bought into because it was cheap. They once dreamed of moving to a better house. Unfortunately, the original owner didn't just waste their savings. He even sold Shin Yochu's phone for alcohol. Bufon walks out of the complex, heading straight for the shopping mall he remembers. As soon as he enters, we see a store for a major domestic phone brand. A young saleswoman's eyes light up when she sees him, and she greets him warmly, asking if he's looking for a new phone. He nods, scanning the display cases before pointing one out. The saleswoman praises his taste, explaining that this is their latest model. It even supports satellite calls. He asks if they sell SIM cards here, and she confirms they do, of course. When she asks if it's for him, he shakes his head and explains it's for his wife. The saleswoman's expression shifts to a hint of disappointment. She's likely thinking that all the good men are already taken, but she doesn't miss a beat in her professional duties. She explains that the person must bring their ID to register the card. He hadn't realized real name registration was required, so he just asks her to pack up the phone. After paying, he leaves in a hurry. There are many more things to buy, and he can't afford to waste time. Meanwhile, after he leaves the house, Shin Yuchu tidies the place from top to bottom. She sits on the sofa, looking out the window. The smell of alcohol has finally vanished, and the fresh air feels incredibly comfortable. Watching Wanwan play happily, a smile unconsciously touches Shin Yochu's lips. This kind of life is wonderful. However, a moment later, the sound of the door lock turning jolts her out of her thoughts. Wanwan quickly scrambles up, clutching her doll as she dives into Shin Yochu's protective embrace. To their surprise, a loud commotion drifts in from outside, and amidst the noise, she hears a very familiar voice. She quickly scoops Wanwan up in her arms, her first instinct being to retreat safely back into the bedroom. However, curiosity gets the better of her, and she can't help but peek toward the door. A moment later, Bufon and a stranger appear. The two men are lugging a cream-colored cloud sofa into the apartment. When Bufon sees Shin Yuchu, his eyes light up with visible joy. Shin Yuchu, who hasn't interacted with outsiders in quite some time, feels a bit flustered. She quickly offers to go pour some water. The smile on Bufon's face deepens, though he's drenched in sweat. He's clearly full of energy as he and the worker move the sofa. They bring in the new piece and haul the old, tattered sofa out. Then come the television, the refrigerator, and even a water purifier. As each new piece of furniture enters the room, the home is instantly transformed. It looks brand new, a fresh start, one might say. Bufon eventually sells all the old, discarded furniture for 800 yuan. Watching this, Shin Yuchu feels a slight pang of regret. To her, those pieces were old but still functional, and 800 yuan seems like a loss. But more importantly, she wonders where the money came from. After seeing the workers out, Bufon returns to the living room carrying a large bag, admiring the results of his hard work with satisfaction. He remarks that it finally feels like a real home. Wiping his brow, he sets the bag on the new coffee table and sinks into the soft sofa. In the kitchen, the mother and daughter are still standing there, stunned. Wanwan clings to her mother's leg, looking around like a curious little bird. Seeing the little one like this makes Bufon's eyes crinkle with a smile. Feeling a sudden sense of accomplishment, he pulls a gift from the bag. It's a large, bright pink toy, which he places carefully on the coffee table for her to see. He calls her over to see what her father bought, but Wanwan doesn't run over immediately. Instead, she looks up at her mother for permission. Only when Shin Yuchu gives a small, silent nod does the girl take a few hesitant steps forward. Bufon immediately begins to unwrap the toy. It's a princess house. He tells her the house is a bit messy and asks if she wants to help her father decorate the little princess's home. Wanwan's eyes instantly sparkle with excitement. She edges closer and closer until she is standing right by his knee. He gives her a gentle smile and picks up the tiny princess, sighing in a playful, high-pitched voice that the princess isn't dressed yet. He tells her that he doesn't know how to dress a princess, so he'll have to leave that task to her, handing the doll over to her small hands. Before him, little Wanwan blinks her large eyes and tentatively reaches out her small hand until she touches the little princess doll. Bufon maintains a gentle smile as he places the doll in her palm, his large hand warmly enveloping her tiny fingers. With a slight upturn of his lips, he picks up a pink dress and tells her that dressing the princess is now her special mission. He asks if she can teach her father how to do it. Feeling the warmth of his palm, Wanwan looks at the doll and then at his playful, pleading face. Suddenly, she giggles and tells him he's silly, offering to show him how it's done as she leans against his leg, showing her tiny white teeth. She clumsily fits the dress onto the doll, and Bufon laughs along, humbly accepting the little one's guidance on royal fashion. In this moment, the small room feels incredibly bright, while Shin Yuchu leans against the doorframe, watching the scene in silence. Her eyes gradually moisten at the beautiful sight, but the play session doesn't last long before Bufon looks up and sees her standing there. He notices her faded light blue shirt, a sight that suddenly feels like a sharp sting to his eyes as a realization hits him. He squints as a memory flashes back. This was actually a family outfit that Shin Yuchu had secretly bought for Wanwan's second birthday. Back then, his past self had beaten her for buying it and even sold her phone. Remembering this cruelty, he falls into a sudden, heavy silence. The next second, he stands up abruptly, covering his mouth as he rushes into the bathroom to retch violently. He is learning, quite painfully, how a person with a conscience feels when they revisit such horrific behavior from a first-person perspective. It is a feeling of sickening, overwhelming self-loathing. Wanwan shrinks into her mother's arms, terrified that her father might burst out and attack them again as he used to do. After a long while, he stumbles out of the bathroom with bloodshot eyes, his heart aching at the sight of the frightened pair. His stomach is still churning, but he forces himself to speak, weakly apologizing for scaring them and claiming he just feels unwell. The thought that he now occupies the body of such a monster makes his skin crawl, as if thousands of ants are swarming over him. Seeing their guarded expressions, he sighs heavily and walks toward the kitchen, suggesting that Wanwan might want to play a bit more. He tells Shin Yuchu to stay with the girl while he prepares lunch, while she watches his profile with a look of profound uncertainty. The scene is familiar, yet somehow entirely foreign. Finally, she nods and carries Wanwan back to the sofa, while the little girl peeks out cautiously. Seeing that her father is still being gentle, a smile finally returns to her face, lasting until the savory aroma of lunch fills the living room. Shin Yuchu watches as he sets the table, but then he quietly retreats to the side bedroom. Her lips tremble, yet she finds herself unable to speak. She remains silent, the words caught in her throat as she watches him withdraw. She chews a piece of stir-fried pork, her favorite dish which she hasn't tasted in ages because he couldn't stand spicy food. Hearing her daughter's question, she instinctively glances toward the bedroom before turning back. Suddenly, she smiles as brightly as a spring flower, a rare and beautiful sight. She tells the little one that Daddy and Mommy just weren't ready yet. Wanwan doesn't quite understand, her tiny brows furrowing in confusion. Inside the bedroom, Bufan sits in a daze, trying to convince himself that the past wasn't his fault, though the reality of it still weighs heavily on him. To distract himself, he pulls out his phone to scroll through videos, only to find his own content still topping the trending charts with fans begging for a new song. It seems the world is waiting for his next move, even if he isn't quite ready for it. While Shun Yuchu washes dishes, Wanwan plays with her new toys on the sofa. When she sees him emerge, she isn't as frightened as before. He offers a small smile and gently pats her head before looking toward the kitchen, just as Shin Yuchu is stepping out. Finding his gaze fixed on her, she instantly tenses up, her hands nervously clutching the hem of her shirt in a helpless gesture. Seeing her so submissive and fearful makes him frown and sigh inwardly. It was exactly this gentle, reserved nature that allowed his past self to bully her so ruthlessly. Realizing his frown might scare her, he quickly relaxes his expression and places the newly purchased phone on the coffee table. He looks at Shin Yuchu and speaks in a soft, gentle tone, telling her he bought her a phone and hopes she likes it. He adds that there are things he'd like to discuss and asks if she could sit with him. Shin Yuchu, who had been looking down, looks up in surprise. She meets his eyes, which now seem so clean and clear, and then her gaze drifts to the brand new phone box on the table. After a moment of hesitation, she gives a soft murmur of agreement and slowly makes her way to the sofa to sit down. She asks in a voice so faint he has to strain to hear what it is he wants to discuss, but for a moment, he doesn't answer. Instead of answering immediately, Bufan picks up the box and begins unboxing the azure-colored phone, quietly handling the initial setup. He hands it directly to Shun Yuchu, explaining that while she'll need to get her own SIM card, he has already saved his number. He tells her to call him if anything happens while he's out. Then, reaching into his pocket, he pulls out a thick stack of bills. He places the cash before her, suggesting she take the child out for a stroll this afternoon since staying cooped up isn't healthy. He encourages her to buy whatever she needs, emphasizing that she should especially look for some new clothes. It was a simple suggestion, really. However, Shin Yuchu only looks up and stares at him, her eyes fixed on his face as she listens to his uncharacteristic fussing. Her eyes slowly begin to redden. Seeing her hesitate to take the phone, Bufan rubs his nose, feeling a bit awkward. He wonders aloud if she dislikes the color, noting it's the latest model, and offers to buy a different one if she prefers. Shin Yuchu gives him a long, searching look before whispering that she actually likes it very much, her voice thick with emotion. Their eyes meet for a brief, heavy second before he looks away, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over him. He tells her there's no need for thanks, and abruptly stands up, heading for the dining table to finally finish his meal. As he eats, Shin Yuchu wonders where all this money came from, but she chooses to keep the question to herself. She picks up the new phone to examine it, and little Wanwan quickly scurries over, curious about her mother's new treasure. We see the two of them huddled together, studying the device as Shun Yuchu gently strokes her daughter's hair. After lunch, Bufan feels a bit stifled and wants a shower, but the pair remains in the living room, making him feel strangely shy. Ultimately, he retreats to the bathroom with a bit of a sigh, waiting until 5 o'clock when the afternoon heat finally begins to fade. On the sofa, Shin Yuchu hesitates for a long time before finally taking the money and leading Wanwan toward the front door. It had been an eternity since Wanwan was allowed outside. Her mother used to be too afraid, and her father simply wouldn't permit it. This rare outing makes the little girl exceptionally happy as she clutches her doll in one hand and her mother's fingers in the other. She skips along while holding her mother's hand, her large, round eyes darting everywhere to take in the sights of the outside world. To her, everything is filled with a sense of novelty, though Shin Yuchu remains tense, her pace quickening almost instinctively as they walk. Watching the crowds of pedestrians passing by, she feels a wave of self-consciousness, especially regarding the ill-fitting clothes she and Wanwan are wearing. She can't help but feel that others are stealing extra glances at them. Fortunately, the mall isn't far, just 2 streets away by her memory. Upon arrival, we see that the mall has changed significantly from what she remembers, looking far more sophisticated after only 2 years of renovations. Right by the entrance, she spots a mobile phone shop with a service counter, and after a brief hesitation, she leads the child inside. The store is quite crowded and the staff seem incredibly busy, leaving Shin Yuchu, who hasn't socialized in ages, standing there somewhat lost. Luckily, a female clerk notices her and approaches, kindly patting Wanwan on the head to break the ice. With a warm smile, the clerk remarks on how well-behaved the little one is before asking if Shin Yuchu is looking for a new phone. Hearing the praise for Wanwan, a smile finally touches Shin Yuchu's face as she asks if it's possible to get a SIM card now. The clerk maintains her friendly professional smile while guiding Shin Yuchu toward the counter, explaining that they have several plans to choose from. She asks what brand of phone she has, noting that there are special discounts if the device matches the store's specific brand. At the mention of a discount, Shin Yuchu's eyes light up, and she quickly pulls the phone from her pocket to show the clerk. She asks softly if this one works, mentioning it's the same brand and was just purchased that very morning. The clerk's expression freezes for a moment as she takes a closer look at Shin Yuchu. After all, very few of these latest models were sold today. Naturally, the clerk recalls the man from earlier and realizes that this mother and daughter must be the family of that handsome customer. She finds it strange that they look so weathered and poorly dressed, as that man didn't seem like the type to mistreat his wife and child. Though she can't quite figure it out, she doesn't pry, keeping her smile as she exclaims that the handsome man from this morning must be her husband. She tells her how lucky she is to have the latest model and explains that with this phone, she qualifies for a special promotion. By topping up 100, she gets another 100 free, along with 600 minutes of talk time, as the clerk continues her enthusiastic pitch. The enthusiastic service continues, though this time the focus has shifted to Shin Yuchu, who finds herself handing over the money in a bit of a daze. She successfully gets her SIM card, but even as she leaves the shop, the clerk's lively voice still echoes in her mind. However, she can't help but dwell on one thing. The clerk had called him a good man. Shin Yuchu secretly thinks that if he's such a catch, the clerk should take him home herself. With the SIM card secured, Shin Yuchu heads to a bank to open an account and deposit her remaining cash. After the phone expenses, she still has 4,900 left. It seems the 5,000 she was given is going a long way. Stepping out of the bank with her phone and card, she looks up at the towering skyscrapers around her. Suddenly, she feels a sense of rebirth. She realizes she can take the child and leave. With this money, she has a real chance to start over. She could find a job, support herself and the child, and perhaps even chase her old dreams again. This sudden rush of freedom is almost overwhelming. Shin Yuchu stands there for a long time, lost in thought, until a small, tender voice pulls her back to reality. "Mama, can Wanwan have an ice cream?" She snaps out of her daydream to find little Wanwan still clutching her hand, her round eyes fixed intently on something nearby. The girl is staring at an ice cream shop, looking as if she might start drooling at any second. Shin Yuchu gives her a smile, one that is truly bright and radiant. She agrees, but warns that only one is allowed, or her little tummy might ache. Wanwan cheers, declaring that she loves her mama most of all. While the mother and daughter are out, we see you enjoying a long, relaxing shower, completely unaware that Shin Yuchu might never come back. After drying off, you begin preparing tonight's dinner. The plan is the usual 2 meat dishes and 2 vegetable sides, with some noodle soup as the main course. Since you aren't sure when they'll return, you don't cook the noodles just yet. You set the side dishes on the table and leave the prepped noodles on the cutting board. Returning to the living room, you collapse onto the sofa and start scrolling through parenting tips on your phone. What to do if a child won't eat? Just give them a spanking. You quickly dismiss that idea. Wanwan is so well-behaved, she'd never refuse a meal. Besides, you couldn't bring yourself to lay a finger on such a cute little thing. You scroll until you're feeling a bit drowsy, letting out a long yawn. Checking the time, you realize it's already 7 o'clock in the evening. You wonder why they aren't back yet, and suddenly sit bolt upright. A wave of nervousness hits you. What if something happened to them? You quickly stand up and put on your shoes, preparing to head out and search for them. But just as you pull the door open, you run right into them. A soft, fragrant breeze drifts in from the doorway, leaving you completely stunned. At this moment, Shin Yuchu is actually humming a little tune. She hums a familiar little tune, her steps light and the corners of her mouth turned up, showing she's in a wonderful mood. In her hands, she carries several shopping bags. Little Wanwan is there too, clutching her mother's hem with one hand while holding that same doll you gave her in the other. But the real reason you're stunned is that they've both changed into well-fitting new clothes. 2 pairs of lively almond eyes blink in surprise when they see you. A moment later, Wanwan sweetly leans in and calls out Papa. It's clear that after a day of exploring and getting new clothes, the little girl is in high spirits. That single word, Papa, nearly makes your soul take flight. You can barely contain your own excitement. Your voice trembles slightly as you answer her. You kneel down, ruffle her hair, and scoop the adorable little thing into your arms as you lead them inside. How about Papa makes you some noodles today? The kind with 2 eggs? Wanwan cheers, saying she loves eggs almost as much as she loves her papa. Meanwhile, poor Shin Yuchu is left standing in the doorway, looking a bit dazed by the sudden domestic whirlwind. A bit later, you set the noodles down in front of the girl and give her nose a playful tap. Habitually, you turn to head back toward the bedroom. But just as you turn, you feel a tug on your shirt. Papa, can you eat with Wanwan? Her soft, sweet voice asks, stopping you in your tracks. You look back into her expectant eyes and hesitate. You steal a quick glance at Shin Yuchu, who is sitting right there next to her. Shin Yuchu says nothing and doesn't even look up. She acts as if she hasn't heard a word, focusing entirely on the bowl of noodles in front of her. To be honest, this silence is a bit awkward. You'd almost prefer a direct rejection over this quiet uncertainty. It's hard to know what she's thinking. Testing the waters, you tentatively suggest that you'll stay and eat with her. Papa, sit next to Wanwan, the little girl exclaims. She happily pats the chair beside her. Rubbing your nose with a slightly sheepish expression, you head to the kitchen to grab your own bowl. You take your seat on Wanwan's right side. With Mama on her left and Papa on her right, the little girl finds herself surrounded by both parents. It's the first time she's experienced this, and the smile never leaves her face. She even eats with extra enthusiasm, determined to finish every bite. She clears the entire bowl, and in the end, it's Shin Yuchu who has to step in, worried the little one might actually overeat. It's a rare moment of maternal concern that breaks the silence. After dinner, you spend time playing with Wanwan while Shin Yuchu retreats to the master bedroom alone. You can understand her need for space, given the circumstances. We can only imagine that letting him sit at the table must have cost Shin Yuchu a massive internal struggle. He tried to put himself in her shoes, thinking about how he would react if he had been treated that way. To be forced to live in harmony with a former enemy, it seemed impossible. In fact, if he were her, his former self wouldn't even have a body left to find. He'd have been fed to the dogs long ago. A grim thought, indeed. He stayed and played with Wanwan until 9 o'clock. The little girl was so tired her head was nodding, yet she stubbornly refused to go to sleep. During this time, he noticed a rather serious problem. Wanwan was already 3 years old, yet the little thing didn't even know how to take off her own shoes. Normally, a 3-year-old would already be starting preschool. He knew this was the result of their previously broken home environment, something that couldn't be fixed in a single day, but it still made his heart ache with guilt. It was at this moment that Shin Yuchu finally emerged from the bedroom. She didn't say a word, simply standing there and silently watching him and Wanwan on the sofa with a look that spoke volumes. He understood instantly. He scooped Wanwan up from the sofa, gave her a kiss on her small cheek, and said with a smile, "It's time for bed, Wanwan. Papa will play with you again tomorrow, okay?" The little girl's eyes, which had been half closed, fluttered open. Just a little. She looked at his face, then turned to look at Shin Yuchu, before suddenly burying her small head into her father's neck. Wanwan wants to sleep with Papa tonight. This sudden request left him completely flustered, and it made Shin Yuchu's expression darken quite visibly. Nothing is quite as loud as a sudden, awkward silence. He looked at Shin Yuchu with a face full of innocence. This was the child's idea, not his. Shin Yuchu quietly clenched her fists. This little white-eyed wolf had been cared for by her for so long, yet after only 2 days, she'd been corrupted by the enemy's sugar-coated bullets. In the end, the little one got her way. After Shin Yuchu gave her a quick wash, the little girl happily crawled into her father's bed. Wanwan clung to his neck like a little koala, refusing to let go, and he simply let her hold him. This was his first time ever tucking a child in. Recalling parenting advice he'd seen online, he began to gently tell Wanwan a bedtime story. Soon, feeling utterly content, Wanwan drifted into a deep sleep. Early the next morning, while the little one was still fast asleep, he got out of bed as usual. He stepped lightly, quietly opening the bedroom door and heading to the living room for his morning run. But a moment later, he rubbed his eyes in disbelief. The tube of ointment that had been sitting on the coffee table was gone. He blinked. His eyes gradually brightened, and a faint, knowing smile spread across his face. Today, we see him leaving the house for his morning run in an exceptionally good mood. Between running, showering, and cooking, he spent over 2 hours preparing. Once breakfast was ready, he had one more important mission for the morning, waking up his daughter. Wanwan was stirred from her sleep by his gentle voice. She rubbed her sleepy eyes, and the moment she saw him, a sweet and charming smile began to bloom on her face. The little one reached out her soft, tender arms, making it very clear she wanted a hug from her papa. It was a scene of pure, domestic warmth. He immediately reached out and gently lifted her up, dressing her in the new clothes he had bought just yesterday, before carrying her out to wash up. Now, he had studied childcare videos online, but as we all know, theory is one thing and practice is quite another. Putting it into action proved much harder than expected. He quickly realized just how delicate a child's body is. Afraid to use too much force, he moved with a clumsy caution throughout the entire process. He felt particularly out of his depth when it came to styling her hair. After struggling for what felt like ages, he could only manage a rather lopsided result. "Papa is a big dummy," Wanwan teased, pouting her little lips as she saw her crooked hair in the mirror. To be honest, her critique was probably fair. He playfully pinched her little nose, making Wanwan giggle uncontrollably as she reached out her own tiny hands to pinch his nose in return. When Shin Yuchu emerged from the bedroom, she was met with this heartwarming scene. She said nothing, simply heading to the kitchen to bring out the breakfast. Perhaps even she didn't realize that the corners of her mouth had unconsciously turned up into a slight smile. And so, the three of them shared a simple meal. After breakfast, he didn't hand Wanwan back to Shin Yuchu. Instead, he brought her to the sofa to continue playing with her dollhouse. However, this time, while they played, he began to subtly introduce some very simple concepts to her little mind, starting with basic numbers. Counting from 1 to 10 was just the beginning. After noticing the gaps in Wanwan's development, he had quietly formulated a plan to help her learn through play. His plan was to foster her independence, moving from simple numbers to basic life skills. He intended to guide Wanwan slowly, one step at a time. Naturally, this wasn't something that would succeed overnight. Fortunately, Wanwan was incredibly bright. She simply hadn't had anyone to teach her these things before. Under his casual guidance, she quickly began to grasp the new information. He also noticed that since Shun Yochu's return yesterday, she seemed like a different person. She clearly possessed a certain radiance that had been missing before. It was a positive sign, and it made him feel a great deal more comfortable deep down. While Shin Yuchu was busy downloading apps on her phone, she kept a quiet, watchful eye on the interaction between the father and daughter. As they interact, Shin Yuchu begins to notice that he is subtly teaching Wanwan through their play. She watches them quietly, a sweet feeling rising in her heart. She had wanted to teach her daughter for a long time, but given their previous family environment, even surviving was a struggle. To be honest, she simply hadn't had the chance. She lacked the capacity to teach Wanwan like a normal mother would. Withdrawing her gaze, Shin Yuchu looks back at her phone screen, noting it is indeed a top-tier model. The download speeds are impressive. In just a few seconds, several apps are already finished. As soon as Shin Yuchu logs into her WeChat, unread messages begin to pop up. The messages are from Chu, the young assistant who had worked with her for 2 years. It seems she was one of the few people who truly cared. Her contact list is small, consisting mostly of him and Chu from her old company. Chu's messages had been sent continuously from the day she married until just 2 days ago. Most of them were asking how she was doing, but she had never been able to reply. Looking at this long string of messages, Shin Yuchu feels a wave of warmth. She immediately types back, apologizing to Chu for the long silence, and explaining that she is doing quite well now and there is no need to worry. The response comes back almost instantly. Sister Shun, you're finally back. I thought you didn't want to talk to me anymore after you got married. Chu continues, telling her that since she disappeared, the company has been full of rumors. It was a difficult time for those left behind, apparently. She mentions that a woman named Lioli has been incredibly arrogant over the last 2 years, taking every opportunity to speak ill of Shin Yuchu to anyone who would listen. Lioli had been telling people that Shin Yuchu got exactly what she deserved. Reading this, Shin Yuchu purses her lips slightly, lost in thought. Deep down, she tells herself that Lioli was right. She had brought this on herself. Back at the company, she had always been a step ahead of Lioli, outshining her at every turn. It was only natural that Lioli would act this way after she left the industry. Instead of responding to the gossip, Shin Yuchu asks Chu how her own life is going. Chu replies that she is doing fine, calling herself a cockroach that can't be killed, but adds that she truly misses her former mentor. Then comes the big question. Sister Shun, will you ever make a comeback? Shin Yuchu freezes for a moment, a flicker of longing visible in her eyes. Could she really return to that world? She glances at him, then at Wanwan, and slowly, that spark of desire begins to fade away. She replies that she probably won't, but suggests that if Chu misses her, they should find a time to meet up in person. Meanwhile, in the city center, inside the Tianmei Entertainment Building, a petite girl about 5 feet tall sets down some heavy equipment. Her hands tremble with excitement as she holds her phone. She is typing furiously, but her joy is suddenly interrupted by a sharp, piercing female voice. Zhao Chu, are you slacking off again? The woman snaps at her to stop being lazy and get back to work, asking if she still thinks she's an assistant to a top star. If she doesn't want to work, she can get out. The voice belongs to a woman with a sharp, fox-like face. She tilts her head back, her narrow eyes filled with nothing but pure disdain for the girl standing before her. She demands to know what Chu is looking at, ordering her to carry the equipment to the recording studio immediately. If she delays the session, she certainly won't be able to pay for the loss. Zhao Chu shoots the woman a silent glare, but she still shoulders the heavy gear and heads toward the studio. Okay, Sister Shun, I'm off this Saturday. Let's talk then. Reading this last message, a genuine smile finally graces Shun Yochu's face. She scrolls through her contacts a bit more, and seeing no other urgent messages, she switches over to Weibo. We see that her last post on the platform dates back 2 years. It was a different life then, one where people actually cared about her updates and her career. She idly browses the trending topics, which are mostly filled with the usual celebrity gossip. However, a few headlines catch her eye, all discussing a song that has recently gone viral. The titles rave about a track called Because of You, calling it a divine melody by a mysterious singer who gained 1 million followers from just a single video. One article promises a deep dive into the identity of this treasure of a singer. Naturally, Shin Yuchu is curious to hear what kind of music is capturing everyone's hearts these days. Following her curiosity, she clicks on the headline. The phone screen automatically transitions to a video interface, and a familiar guitar melody begins to play through the speakers. The living room suddenly falls silent as the singing voice echoes around the three of them. It is a moment of pure, unexpected recognition that hangs heavy in the air. He turns his head away, feeling a bit awkward, while little Wanwan's big eyes blink in surprise. She dives into Shun Yuchu's arms, staring intently at the glowing phone screen. Shin Yuchu is completely stunned. This familiar voice is the exact same one she heard coming from his room just a couple of days ago. It turns out he was recording a video that day. Wanwan is the first to break the silence. She points her tiny finger at the screen and looks up at Shin Yuchu with a face full of wonder and excitement. It's Daddy. Daddy is inside the phone. Shin Yuchu strokes the little girl's head gently, confirming that yes, it is indeed her father singing that beautiful song. She finally understands how he had so much money to replace all the furniture. With millions of likes on his video, it's clear he's become something of a sensation. She turns to look at his sharp profile, her eyes filled with a complex, unreadable emotion. Meanwhile, Wanwan is overjoyed by her mother's confirmation and lunges back into his arms. The little girl cups her father's face with her tiny hands, her eyes sparkling with light. In her sweet, milky voice, she tells him how gentle he sounds and that she wants to sing too. Feeling those soft little hands on his cheeks, his gaze softens completely. He mirrors her gesture, cupping his daughter's small face with his large hands and asking if she really likes singing. I love it, Wanwan exclaims, her big eyes curving into crescents. To be honest, it's a scene of domestic warmth that neither of them could have imagined just a week ago. Without a moment's hesitation, he answers with a bright smile, promising to teach Wanwan how to sing so that once she learns, she can perform right there. He asks if she'd like to sing inside the phone, and Wanwan nods her little head eagerly before giving his cheek a big, enthusiastic kiss. Having received his reward, he beams with joy and, under the little one's admiring gaze, quickly rushes back to the side room. He brings out the guitar and returns to the sofa, where he begins tuning the strings. Turning his head, we see both Shun Yuchu and Wanwan staring at him without blinking. His face actually turns a rare shade of red as he brushes the strings, announcing he will create a special song just for Wanwan. He tells her he will sing it once first, and then they will go line by line together. It's a simple plan, but for them, it's everything. Wanwan nods happily, her face full of anticipation for this song called Explosion of Courage. It's a bold title for a little girl, isn't it? He tells her to listen closely and begins to strum. A light, cheerful melody fills the living room, and we see that Wanwan's sense of rhythm is surprisingly good. She sways her head to the beat, and he can't help but start swaying along with the little one as well. Watching the father and daughter moving in perfect sync, Shin Yuchu's gaze softens completely, and a gentle smile finally creeps onto her face. She even joins in on the rhythm, and for the first time, the entire family is immersed in a sea of pure joy. At this moment, even the living room seems to brighten. Following the lyrics, Wanwan clenches her tiny fists and strikes a heroic Superman pose. He sets the guitar aside to mimic the gesture with her, then reaches out to gently boop Wanwan's little nose with his finger. Wanwan throws herself into his arms, her short little arms wrapping tightly around his neck as she whispers that she loves this version of her daddy. She begs him never to change back to how he was before. Hearing her soft, sweet voice, his mouth hangs open as a sudden mist fills his eyes. He pulls Wanwan into a tight embrace, burying his face in her clothes as he promises, in a shaky but firm voice, that he will never be that man again. Shin Yuchu cannot see his expression, but her own face is already covered in tears. And yet, strangely enough, she is smiling through them. She knows deep down that those dark days are gone forever. He is the first to compose himself, pulling back to settle his emotions. Setting the guitar down, he lifts Wanwan onto his lap and suggests they start the lesson, singing one line at a time for her to follow. Wanwan agrees instantly, and the rest of the afternoon transforms into a private concert for a father and his daughter. A perfect Tuesday indeed. For the entire morning, the living room echoes with the sound of their singing. Seeing them so immersed in the lesson, Shin Yuchu quietly begins preparing lunch. However, her cooking isn't quite as skilled as his, leading little Wanwan to insist she only wants to eat her daddy's food from now on. This earns the little one a playful, jealous glare from Shin Yuchu, who feels a bit indignant, the little traitor. It has only been 2 days, and she's already been won over. Still, this atmosphere feels right. It's how a real family should be. Wanwan is a quick study, and in just 3 days, she manages to sing Explosion of Courage perfectly from start to finish. At Wanwan's insistent request, he films a video of her and uploads it to the platform. In the clip, Wanwan wears a pink princess dress and a bow in her hair, her tiny body swaying to the music. She is utterly adorable, and while filming, his face lights up with pure joy. His expression is full of pride, practically shouting to the world that this is his daughter. Watching from the side, Shin Yuchu notices his expression and finds herself softening toward him. things have improved significantly. At least now, Shin Yuchu will initiate a few words with him. No one expected the second video on the Boo fan account to be a children's song. It's another original, and just as catchy as the first. At the platform's headquarters, Lu Yun discovers the video immediately. After watching it through, she doesn't hesitate for a second before giving it the maximum promotional push. With such a cute child and such a wonderful song, Lu Yun can't stop grinning from ear to ear. Naturally, the platform's trending list explodes again. Before the waves from A Voice With You have even settled, the storm of explosion of courage begins to howl. This time, the momentum is even more fierce. In just one afternoon, the likes hit 5 million, and the comment count is simply absurd. By evening, he is forced to mute his phone again. He sits on the sofa with Wan in his arms, tirelessly scrolling through the comment section. The users are truly talented, and he finds himself unable to stop reading. If I had a daughter like this, I wouldn't allow any boys within 100 miles. This is the most liked comment. On Saturday morning, just as he finishes his run, he wipes his sweat and pushes open the front door, only to see Shin Yuchu wearing a newly purchased camisole nightgown. She looks like a lotus flower emerging from clear water, natural and breathtakingly beautiful. Seeing him standing there like a statue, as he stares at her like a stunned fool, Shin Yuchu instinctively covers her chest, her face, and even her ears flushing deep crimson. They have been married for over 2 years, yet in this moment, they feel like a pair of awkward new lovers. Morning, he says. Shin Yuchu tries her best to remain calm as she greets him, though her pace toward the bedroom quickens noticeably. He gives a simple reply, but she says nothing more, practically fleeing back into her room. He can't help but smile helplessly, shaking off those stray thoughts. Humming a tune, he heads to the bathroom. Then comes the daily routine: shower, cook, and wake up Wan. As he pushes open the bedroom door, we see little Wan still fast asleep, her mouth slightly open as she sprawls across the large bed. After a few days of proper meals and rest, Wan's complexion has brightened significantly. She is still quite thin, but her spirit has visibly improved. He sits by the bed for a moment before leaning down to gently pinch the little one's nose. Wan, time for breakfast. The little girl pouts her tiny lips and slowly blinks her eyes open. The moment she sees him, the corners of her mouth curl upward uncontrollably. She sluggishly reaches out her short arms to hug his neck, calling out "Daddy" in a sweet, sleepy voice. He chuckles and lifts her up, carrying her out of the bedroom and placing her on the stool in front of the bathroom sink. For the past 2 days, the little one has been brushing her teeth herself. He stays by her side, helping with the toothpaste and towel. Wan is remarkably bright. It only took 2 days of teaching for her to master this skill. Just then, Shin Yuchu emerges from her room. She has tied her long hair up into a high, neat bun. To be honest, seeing Shin Yuchu like this makes his eyes light up with genuine appreciation. This is the vitality a woman in her 20s should have, though he thinks she still needs to eat more. Shin Yuchu is still feeling a bit nervous, her cheeks slightly pink. This is the first time she has dressed up like this at home, and she isn't sure if it looks good. She glances at him while he tends to Wan, then quietly walks to the table and sits down. She noticed his eyes brighten for a second, which must mean she looks alright. But then she wonders, why does she even care what he thinks? Feeling annoyed at her own weakness, she puffs out her cheeks and stirs her bowl. It's at this moment that he arrives at the table, with a freshly washed Wan. The little girl gives a sweet "morning, mommy" before picking up her special spoon to start her meal. As he enjoys a bowl of golden millet porridge, he is suddenly surprised when Shin Yuchu asks if he can come out with them today. He looks up at her with a face full of confusion. Shin Yuchu nods, avoiding his gaze while her earlobes turn a vivid, bright shade of crimson. It turns out her assistant, Zhao Chuchu, has arranged to meet at a milk tea shop. The invitation includes him and Wan only because Chuchu wants to see the little one. Since Wan has become his inseparable shadow lately, he is purely riding on the little girl's coattails. After 2 long years, Zhao Chuchu is thrilled to see her mentor again, having arrived early with several cups of milk tea. She sits by the window, eyes glued to the entrance. Chuchu worked with Shin Yuchu for over a year, and they were as close as sisters. Shin Yuchu had always treated her so well, but then, unfortunately, she chose to be with him. Chuchu never understood why her dear friend insisted on staying with such a worthless man. She had tried to talk her out of it, but back then, Shin Yuchu seemed to have a heart of iron and wouldn't listen to a word of advice. As Chuchu's mind wanders through these memories, she suddenly sees that familiar figure walking through the door, holding the hand of a bouncing little girl. Her eyes light up as she jumps to her feet, waving her hand frantically. "Sister Shun, over here." Hearing the voice, Shin Yuchu looks up and spots Chuchu's waving hand. A genuine smile spreads across her face. Chuchu hasn't changed a bit. She is still as lively and cheerful as ever. As they approach, we see their eyes grow moist with joy. After such a long separation, these 2 sisters find it hard to suppress their emotions. Zhao Chuchu examines Shin Yuchu closely, her eyes turning even redder. She grabs her friend's hand, her lip trembling with worry. "Sister Shun, you've lost so much weight. Is that man treating you badly? Where is he? I'll give him a piece of my mind." Shin Yuchu purses her lips and sits down with Chuchu, pulling Wan close to her side before speaking. "Chuchu, don't worry. He is actually treating me quite well now. But what about you? Has work been going smoothly since I left? I'm doing fine, but you have no idea how much I've missed you. The two catch up on their lives for a while before Zhao Chuchu finally shifts her gaze to the little one. The little girl has been sitting there quietly the whole time. Chuchu was so preoccupied with the reunion that she hadn't looked closely until now. Looking closer, Chuchu's eyes light up instantly. The girl looks exactly like Sister Shun, as if carved from the same mold, especially those vibrant, large eyes that make anyone fall in love with the little one at first sight. Sister Shun, is this one? She's so adorable, Chuchu exclaims, leaving her seat to crouch before the child and gently stroking her small face. Then, her brow furrows slightly. The little one is just as thin as Shin Yuchu, and Chuchu's heart is now filled with immense indignation. She is certain that worthless man must be mistreating both mother and child. The more she thinks, the angrier she gets. She's dying to confront him face to face. Looking up at Shin Yuchu, she asks, Sister Shun, didn't you say he was coming? Where is he? Shin Yuchu can sense Chuchu's hostility toward him, but she doesn't know how to explain and can only offer an awkward smile. Wanwan wanted ice cream, so he went to wait in line to buy some for her. Chuchu naturally notices the look on Shin Yuchu's face, and her heart sinks further. Her sister Shun was always gentle and reserved, but now that gentleness seems tinged with a certain timidness. Fearing she might scare the child, Chuchu merely lets out a cold snort and returns to her seat, though secretly. She's gnashing her teeth, wishing she could just make him disappear. Just as Chuchu is about to speak, she suddenly freezes, her gaze turning sharp as she looks toward the entrance of the milk tea shop. Shin Yuchu is startled, her expression becoming even more awkward. She assumes he has arrived, triggering Chuchu's hostility. But as she turns to look, a shrill, mocking voice rings out from behind her. Zhao Chuchu, you still have time for milk tea? Is the work I gave you finished? Lioli, are you quite done? Today is a day off. Chuchu's face darkens, looking like a bristling kitten as she glares at the speaker. Shin Yuchu turns around and finally recognizes the newcomer as Lioli, a popular starlet from her former company who was known as a talented singer. Well, if it isn't Sister Shun, shouldn't you be at home playing the dutiful wife and mother? What are you doing out here looking for Chuchu? Lioli's eyes are smiling, but her words are dripping with sarcasm. Before Shin Yuchu can even respond, Chuchu snaps. Lioli, mind your own business. It's not a work day, so stop with the attitude. Sister Shun, let's go. A barking dog will only ruin our mood. With that, Chuchu picks up Wanwan and takes Shin Yuchu's hand to leave, but Lioli steps forward to block them. Blocking their path, she looks at Shin Yuchu, her eyebrows twitching as she smiles again. Oh, Sister Shun, why are you so thin? Is life that hard? If things are bad, just tell me. I could offer some charity, given how kind-hearted I am. Look at Chuchu, she's working under me now and doing just fine. Right, Chuchu? Zhao Chuchu's face turns ashen as she glares at Lioli in silence. Shin Yuchu turns to Chuchu in utter disbelief. After all, doing chores means manual labor. How could the company make Chuchu do that? She realizes now isn't the time for questions, though. Shin Yuchu turns back toward Lioli, her gaze now burning with a rare spark of anger. But just as she's about to speak, Chuchu beats her to it. My contract with the company expires at the end of the month, she says. And when that day comes, I'll be resigning immediately. To be honest, it was a long time coming. Lioli freezes for a moment. She still lives in Shun Yuchu's shadow, considering Yuchu completely outshone her for a year and a half. Back then, who even knew who Lioli was? However, she quickly recovers her smirk, looking at Shin Yuchu with pure disdain. A comeback? That's the funniest joke I've ever heard. What company would sign a washed-up artist with a child? Speaking of the kid, your daughter is quite a looker, Yuchu. Maybe you should consider grooming her to be the next generation's little star. Lioli speaks with utter contempt, even reaching out dismissively to pinch Wanwan's small face. Get your filthy hands off her. I guarantee if you touch her, you won't have a place left to cry. A cold voice rings out. With a fierce look, he walks quickly to Shin Yuchu and hands the ice cream to the three of them. Then, he turns to face Lioli, shielding both Shin Yuchu and Wanwan behind his back. Startled, Lioli instinctively takes 2 steps back from his sudden presence. It seems his angry expression carries quite a bit of pressure, but as she steadies herself and looks closer, she suddenly laughs. Oh, it's just this pretty boy. A useless waste of space. I wondered who it was, but it's only you. Which, naturally, was a very bold thing to say. She was a singer at my old company. I didn't expect to see her here, Shin Yuchu whispers, though she seems a bit intimidated by his anger. Seeing him look her way, she lowers her head slightly. This only makes his brow furrow deeper as he feels a pang of sympathy for her. He sighs inwardly and stops questioning Shin Yuchu. Instead, he turns back, staring down at Lioli. A singer? I'm sorry to hear that. He looks at her calmly and says he has never heard of her, adding that a good dog shouldn't block the path. He tells her to move. Lioli's voice grows even shriller as she tells him to learn his place, claiming she knows all about how he constantly sucks up to others. She mocks him for buying drinks for Yi Tiancheng from the boy band, but he just pauses to think about who those people even are. Finally, he remembers that they were members of his former group. After leaving the industry, he had indeed tried to win them over. Back then, they wouldn't even give him the time of day, so he simply tells her he isn't familiar with the 2 people she mentioned. He warns her that if she keeps pestering them, he'll call security. Lioli glares at him, but finally, and quite wisely, steps aside. He takes Shun Yochu's hand and signals for Zhao Chuchu to follow as they walk away. But as they pass Lioli, she isn't finished yet. Lioli calls out to Shun Yuchu, mockingly lamenting that some people can't sing anymore while her own new song drops at the end of the month. She laughs happily, asking how Yuchu could ever hope to compete with her. Her voice echoes unpleasantly in their ears as they walk. Zhao Chuchu looks like she wants to slap her, knowing how much Shun Yuchu loves singing and how cruel it is to bring up her loss. He pauses for a moment, giving Lioli one last deep look before continuing toward the exit without showing any emotion on his face. Shun Yuchu remains silent, merely pursing her lips in a thin line. But then, a small, youthful voice suddenly breaks the tension. Wanwan speaks up with a clear and firm tone, telling Lioli that her mother sings much better than her and calling her a mean lady. Everyone is stunned, as no one expected the little girl to stand up for her mother like that. He freezes for a second in surprise. Then, with a smile, he rubs the little girl's head, thinking to himself that she truly is his daughter. His lingering anger begins to fade. The moment Wanwan spoke, his frustration vanished completely. Ignoring Lioli's reaction, the group finally leaves that troublesome place behind. A little later, they arrive at a restaurant. While they wait, Shun Yuchu and Zhao Chuchu begin to catch up on everything they've missed. Now that they are finally seated away from prying eyes, Shun Yuchu takes Chuchu's hand to ask the question that has been weighing on her. She asks how Chuchu ended up doing chores for Lioli and wonders what happened to Sister Yun, their former manager. Sister Yun was Shun Yochu's manager, a woman nearly 40 who had always been kind to her. Upon hearing the name, Chuchu's expression shifts. At Yochu's question, Chuchu's expression darkens with a sadness she can't hide. She explains that after Yuchu left, Sister Yun was fired shortly after. She searched for a long time, but couldn't find work. Later, when her mother fell ill and required constant hospital care, she had to take a job as a nanny. Shun Yuchu never imagined that Sister Yun would fall to such a state. Her vision blurs slightly as the weight of the news hits her. She can still vaguely see the image of Sister Yun, sharp, efficient, and decisive. Both women fall into a heavy, contemplative silence. Deep down, she blames herself, believing that if it weren't for her own stubbornness, Sister Yun wouldn't be in this position. After all, Yun had defied the company for her many times. When Yuchu had a bright future, the company said nothing. But once she walked away from it all, it was easy to guess the kind of treatment Sister Yun faced. The atmosphere remains somber as they finish their meal. After talking a while longer, Zhao Chuchu has to leave in a hurry. Shun Yochu's mood remains low. We see that although the family of 3 had planned an afternoon at the amusement park, her heart is no longer in it. He can naturally sense her distress and wants to say something to comfort her, but in the end, the words remain unspoken. To be honest, even he doesn't fully understand why Shun Yuchu was so determined to marry him back then, as if she were under a spell. The original owner of this body didn't know, and he certainly doesn't either. Now, Shun Yuchu just wants to go home and be alone with her thoughts. However, when she sees the expectant look in Wanwan's eyes, she can't bear to disappoint her. She tells herself that the child's happiness comes first. And so, the family of 3 arrives at the amusement park. The little one is overjoyed, as it's her very first time, and she pulls his hand to rush inside. Shun Yuchu forces herself to brighten up. She doesn't want Wanwan's memories of her first park visit to be stained by her mother's sadness. They start with the carousel and move through several other rides. As they play, the sky begins to dim almost without them noticing. The park lights up with 1,000 colorful bulbs. Their final stop is the Ferris wheel, a classic ending to a long day. By the time he carries Wanwan into the cabin with Shun Yuchu, the little girl has already fallen fast asleep in his arms. As the wheel rises slowly, the glowing buildings below begin to shrink. What he doesn't realize is that this is also Shun Yochu's first time at a park. It is her first time on a Ferris wheel, too. Her eyes are wide with curiosity, sparkling as she gazes out at the world below. She watches the window, and he watches her. Sensing his gaze, her ears slowly turn red, and she gives him a shy, playful glare. It is the first time he has seen such a look, and it's a bit much to handle. The Ferris wheel lights illuminate her slender face, and he suddenly feels a bit dazed. As the wheel continues its slow ascent, the castle grounds below are suddenly transformed in an instant. Fireworks begin to burst into the sky all at once. In the glow of the blooming sparks, we clearly see a pure smile spread across Shun Yochu's face. It is a smile from the heart, and he finds himself staring. At that moment, the Ferris wheel slowly reaches its highest point. The fireworks are even clearer now, making Shun Yochu's face look even more enchanting. He tells her she doesn't need to be afraid like before. Amidst the noise, his voice is soft, and Shun Yuchu doesn't hear him clearly. She turns to look at him with a questioning gaze, but he doesn't look back. He continues to watch the brilliant fireworks in the sky, whispering that she is too gentle, and that being so gentle often leads to being bullied. He tells her she doesn't have to be afraid anymore. He knows she wants to sing and has many things she wants to do. He promises to look after Wanwan. Shun Yuchu doesn't respond. When he turns his head, he sees 2 trails of tears shimmering on her face. She purses her lips, her eyes fixed on him with an intensity of grievance and complexity that seems ready to drown him. He suddenly becomes nervous, not understanding why she has suddenly started to cry. "Who are you?" Shun Yuchu asks, staring at him with eyes that are now a misty blur. Her clear voice isn't loud, but it resonates deeply in his heart. He remains silent as the air between them grows heavy with a silence that seems to drown out even the fireworks. After a long while, he finally gives her a gentle smile and speaks. His voice is suddenly a bit raspy as he tells her, "I am Lu Fan." Shin Yuchu continues to watch him, his smile making her heart suddenly race like a startled deer. His answer is something she never expected. She looks into his eyes, which are clear and bright, and her tears begin to fall even faster. She pulls her legs close, burying her head as she sobs quietly, before finally whispering, "That's right. You are Lu Fan. After all, who else could he be?" He offers to tell her a cliché story about a little girl in an orphanage. She was very timid, but there was a boy a year older who always protected her. One day, when she was being bullied by a group of boys, that older brother shielded her, ensuring she wasn't hurt at all while he ended up covered in bruises. In her eyes back then, that boy was her entire world. However, shortly after that, the boy disappeared until she finally grew up. When she saw that older brother again, she finally fulfilled her wish and married him. Hearing this, he falls silent, finally understanding the weight of her past. Shin Yuchu looks up, her eyes blurred with tears, looking so lonely and vulnerable as she finally reveals the secret hidden deep in her heart. No one understood her stubbornness, and everyone thought her sacrifice wasn't worth it, but she believed it was. Yet the outcome was so devastating that she had regretted it countless times, until he appeared. She asks again who he is, and he says he is Lu Fan. To be honest, it was the only answer he could give. Suddenly, she throws herself into his arms, competing with little Wanwan for space as she sobs quietly. Wanwan is woken by the noise, blinking, her eyes in confusion as she sees her mother occupying her favorite spot. The little one freezes for a moment, but then, to our delight, she happily wraps one arm around her father and the other around her mother, planting a big kiss on each of their cheeks. For Wanwan, this is the best day of her life. Looking at the two beauties in his arms, he can't help but laugh softly. Life is finally moving in the right direction. And for now, that is enough. However, some of his plans will need to change. As the fireworks fade, the Ferris wheel slowly returns to Earth. Shin Yuchu carries Wanwan and walks ahead, while he follows behind, watching her brisk pace and rubbing his nose with a wry smile. The moment they stepped off the Ferris wheel, she left his embrace, and her demeanor seemed to return instantly to her usual coldness. Deep down, Shin Yuchu is incredibly nervous. Even her grip on Wanwan is tight. She can feel her ears and cheeks beginning to burn with heat. She can't believe she stayed in his arms for so long, acting like a little girl. It's mortifying, really. She is certain he must be laughing at her in his head. After all, she saw the faint trace of a smile on his face when they stepped out. At that thought, Shin Yuchu's pace quickens until she is almost power walking. He has no idea why this woman has suddenly become so energetic. He practically has to jog just to keep up with her. They finally reach the gates of the amusement park, but Shin Yuchu shows no sign of stopping. He finally has to call out to her, asking if she intends to walk all the way home or if they should call a taxi. Only then does Shin Yuchu stop. She stands by the road without looking at him, convinced he is still mocking her from behind. How embarrassing. It takes a long time to finally hail a taxi, which, naturally, is the moment he first considers the idea of buying a car for the trip home. Once they arrived home, he carried little Wanwan back to her room and tucked her in. He then headed straight to his own bedroom, where he quickly fell into a deep sleep. But while he slept soundly, Shin Yuchu found herself tossing and turning. Every time she closed her eyes, scenes from their day at the amusement park flashed through her mind. Feeling a bit flustered, she pulled the quilt over her face, trying to force herself to sleep. However, her fluttering eyelashes betrayed just how restless her heart truly was in that moment. At 6 in the morning, he woke up as usual for his morning run, followed by a shower, cooking breakfast, and waking Wanwan. Even after finishing his entire routine, there was still no sign of Shin Yuchu. Looking at the tightly closed bedroom door, he scratched his head. It seems they really did return quite late last night, as she still hadn't woken up. He decided not to disturb her, thinking it best to just leave her a portion of breakfast. After washing and putting away the dishes, he stepped out of the kitchen just as Shin Yuchu finally emerged. With her face slightly flushed, she hurried across the living room to the bathroom. He watched her for a moment before asking if she still wanted to sing. Hearing his voice, Shin Yuchu froze for a second, not reacting at first. He leaned against the bathroom doorframe with his phone, waiting quietly for her answer. After a brief silence, her soft voice finally reached his ears, simply saying, yes. Just one word, without any further explanation. In her heart, the life she was living now was already beyond anything she had dared to imagine these past 2 years. Singing felt like a distant dream, one she had buried deep inside. He didn't push further, merely nodding before returning to his room to check his private messages. His inbox had been exploding ever since his first video went live. He had only skimmed through them once at the beginning, and finding anything specific now was a challenge. Still, he patiently scrolled through the screen, filtering through the messages one by one. Finally, his eyes lit up. He clicked on a specific message and read the contents, his fingers instinctively tapping against the screen. He began to reconsider his path. Originally, his only goal in posting videos was to make enough money to ensure a stable life. for Wanwan and Shin Yuchu before quietly stepping back. But after yesterday's events, his perspective had shifted. The message was straightforward. Fancheng Entertainment was cordially inviting him to join their team, citing his immense musical talent. They promised to turn him into a top-tier superstar in the shortest time possible, leaving their contact information at the very end. Now, Fancheng Entertainment is one of the 3 giants in the country's industry. Without hesitation, he entered their contact number and placed the call. It only rang a few times before a professional, mature female voice answered. Hello, may I ask? Who is calling? Hello, my account name is Buffon. I received an invitation from your company and was wondering if you have a moment to chat. Far away at the headquarters in the capital, Li Xia took the call, her expression momentarily blank. She hadn't actually expected this creator named Buffon to call her back. After all, several days had passed since she sent that private message, and she had assumed he had no interest in entering the entertainment circle. Hello, are you still there? He asked when the other end went silent. Li Xia snapped back to reality, a look of pure joy spreading across her face. We have to remember, over the last few days, the most viral person on the internet was undoubtedly this mysterious fellow. Mr. Buffon, I am Li Xia, Deputy Director of Human Resources. Are you looking to join Fancheng Entertainment? Director Li, I'm sorry, but I don't have any plans to enter the industry myself right now. However, I would like to recommend a singer to you. I wonder if your company would be interested. Li Xia couldn't help but feel disappointed. She shook her head with a bitter smile. The one she really wanted was Buffon himself. Mr. Buffon, it's like this. I am only a deputy director. If it were you, I could make the decision based on your fame alone. But for someone else, you don't need to worry. Her singing is absolutely top tier, and I will be the one composing and writing her songs. I see. In that case, I'll need to consult with my superiors. Fine, I'll wait for your news. 5 hours later, the return call finally came. Mr. Buffon, we've discussed it, and we can allow the person you recommended to join. However, the management's concern is that you currently only have 2 songs to your name. Please don't misunderstand. Both songs are excellent, but they want to see more of your composing ability. I hope that's convenient. It seemed that, as expected, 2 songs weren't enough to fully earn their trust. Composing? Yes, I can do that, was his simple, clear reply. Li Xia had been feeling quite anxious, but hearing Buffon agree so decisively brought her a sense of relief. To be honest, she needed this. She had spent the whole day running around for this matter. She believed in Buffon's talent, even if the higher-ups were still skeptical. Ultimately, the company agreed to give Buffon a chance. It just so happened that Huayin had recently set a difficult challenge for several agencies. The challenge had invited many songwriters, but unfortunately, none were chosen and all were passed over. If Buffon could solve this difficult problem, the company would never doubt him again. Mr. Buffon, can we meet to discuss the details? We still need you to come over and perform the songwriting and composing on site, Li Xia said very sincerely. She truly wanted to meet this mysterious fellow and see what he actually looked like. He thought for a moment. Besides taking care of the children, he had nothing else to do, so he readily agreed. All right, what time and place? In the Magic City. If possible, tomorrow would be best. After all, the earlier you arrive, the more advantageous it is for you, and the better it demonstrates your value. Then let's make it tomorrow afternoon. After hanging up, he booked a 10 o'clock flight. Before long, he actually drifted into a deep sleep. When Shin Yuchu returned with Wanwan, she saw him sleeping soundly. Little Wanwan walked to the sofa and gently snuggled into his arms. In his dream, he only felt like a small cat was constantly rubbing against his face. He felt a bit short of breath and suddenly woke up, Wanwan's cheerful laughter echoing in his ears. He looked down and finally realized it was his precious daughter using her warm little hands to pinch his nose. Daddy, it's time to eat. He smiled warmly, suddenly feeling that this kind of life was quite wonderful. The aroma of food wafted from the dining room, making his stomach feel rather hungry. Shin Yochu's figure then emerged from the kitchen, carrying 2 bowls of rice. She glanced at him and said softly, since you hadn't woken up, I went ahead and made dinner. The meal looked and smelled perfect, making him even hungrier. Hearing his praise, Shin Yuchu felt a bit shy. She nodded and returned to the kitchen to bring another bowl of rice to the table. As the family ate, he placed a piece of crispy pork into Wanwan's bowl, then turned to Shin Yuchu and said, I need to go out tomorrow. I'm not sure how many days I'll be gone. Shun Yuchu was drinking soup and, hearing his words, suddenly choked and couldn't stop coughing. He hurriedly handed her a tissue, looking worried. Shin Yuchu took the tissue and turned away to wipe her mouth. Hearing that he was suddenly leaving, she was indeed a bit flustered. He rubbed the little girl's head and said, Daddy is going to find a job for Mommy. Then he looked at Shin Yuchu. I'm sorry for making this decision without asking your opinion. I didn't tell you before because things weren't settled, but now a company has invited me to talk. If this talk succeeds, you can make your comeback openly. Fancheng Entertainment should be quite good. She was to be the one singing. Shin Yuchu looked at him instinctively, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. As their gazes met, her trusting eyes suddenly began to fill with a soft mist, turning slightly red as they softened with emotion. It was a look that, frankly, he found a bit overwhelming, so he quickly looked down to focus on his rice. Yuchu never imagined that one day she truly might sing again, and that this man would be the one to actively choose this path for her. Thank you. I love singing. I really, really love it, she whispered, her voice growing more Determined, she loved to sing, but she also wanted a better life for Chu-Chu and Sister Yun, so they would never be bullied again. Ever since meeting Zhao Chu-Chu, she had been constantly worried about them. No need for thanks. If you like it, that's enough, he replied with a gentle smile. Then, early the next morning, he urged them to return home, promising he'd be back in a day or two. He told them not to worry as he hailed a taxi heading for the airport. Headed for the airport and turned to speak to Shen Yuchu. She nodded, though her eyes betrayed a certain reluctance to see him go. It's ironic, really. Not long ago, she couldn't wait to escape him. Now, in just a few days, she felt a pang of sadness at his departure. Be safe out there. He teased her, asking why she was acting like this was a life-or-death parting, then steeled himself and climbed into the taxi without looking back. As the car pulled away, the two figures in the rearview mirror grew smaller. He closed his eyes, feeling a strange, indescribable sensation in his heart. 3 hours later, he stepped off the plane and immediately felt the sweltering energy of the Magic City. Compared to Jiang City, the crowds here were immense. Following the surging tide of people, he struggled to navigate through the terminal until he finally reached exit 5 and breathed a sigh of relief. Standing at the exit, he scanned the sea of people holding up signs, looking for his own name. Before arriving, he had arranged a time with Li Xia, who promised to meet him right here. There were so many people holding signs, mostly fans waiting for idols, that it was quite a chaotic scene. After searching for a long while, he finally spotted an elegant woman in a professional suit. The sign she held clearly displayed the name Buffon. He walked over quickly and waved to her. Hello, are you Director Li? I am Buffon, but my real name is Lu Fan. Sorry to keep you waiting. As Li Xia looked at the man before her, a flash of surprise crossed her eyes, though she managed to hide it well. She knew he was young, but she hadn't expected him to look like a fresh college graduate. Moreover, he had a face that was perfectly suited for stardom. Li Xia couldn't help but feel a bit of regret. If only she could sign him as an artist. Hello, she replied. I'm Li Xia, she introduced herself. It's far too crowded here, and my car is in the underground lot. Since it's dinner time, let's find a place to eat before we talk business. Lu Fan nodded and walked alongside her. Xia was clearly a seasoned professional who knew how to handle people. As they walked, she skillfully kept the conversation flowing. She had expected a young man like him to be awkward, but as they spoke, she realized he could keep up with any topic with ease. He wasn't shy or hesitant like most people his age, and this caught Xia by surprise, making her respect him even more. Truly, talented people seem to thrive anywhere. Lu Fan, of course, had no idea she was so impressed. If he did, he'd likely find it quite amusing. After all, with the memories of 2 lifetimes, he was effectively over 50 years old. If he lacked this much emotional intelligence by now, he might as well give up entirely. Once they were in the car, he watched the bustling Magic City pass by. Xia pointed out local landmarks as they drove, and soon they arrived at a specialty restaurant. While waiting for their food, Xia finally turned the conversation to business. I'll call you Mr. Liu. Tell me, who are you recommending? An amateur or a professional singer? I wonder if Director Li has heard of Shin Yuchu, he asked. She used to be a singer, but she left the industry. Now, she's looking to return. As the real discussion began, his expression grew serious. Xia frowned slightly at the name. She had indeed heard Shin Yuchu's songs before. 2 years ago, Yuchu had been a rising star with incredible vocal talent. However, the reason Xia hesitated was because Yuchu had been forced out of the industry after a dating scandal. Apparently, her partner had been some useless, pretty-faced nobody, a difficult situation to manage. Xia thought for a moment, tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear, and looked him in the eye. I know her, but what is your relationship with her, Mr. Liu? And do you know why she really left the industry? He met her gaze and answered calmly. We are husband and wife. Even a veteran of the industry like Xia couldn't help but stare in shock at his answer. Husband and wife? Was he that legendary pretty boy from the rumors? She wondered if Yuchu had divorced that man and found someone new. Seeing Xia's stunned expression, he guessed exactly what she was thinking and gave a bitter smile. You're right. I'm the one who was with her when the scandal broke. Xia was suddenly at a loss for words. She knew of Yuchu, but she hadn't followed the details of who the girl had actually been with. She usually ignored idol boy band types who lived off their looks. Now, she was starting to have serious doubts about those 2 songs. He didn't give her much time to overthink whether he had actually written those songs. Seeing the conflict on her face, he continued by asking if it was really so difficult for her company to sign her. If it was truly a problem, he told her he would find another way. But his demands didn't stop at just having her join. He wanted far more than a simple contract for her. He expected her to have top-tier resources and a flexible contract that wouldn't tie her down. At the end of the day, as we know, it all comes down to a matter of mutual interest. He expressed his belief that with his help, Fanqing Entertainment could reach new heights, and he hoped they would reconsider. After saying his piece, he calmly took a sip of water. Xia looked grave, clearly feeling the weight of the situation. To be honest, she was in a difficult position as she began to voice her concerns to him. She pointed out that they hadn't collaborated before, and 2 songs alone weren't enough to justify such a high price. While she acknowledged Yochu's talent, the industry required more than just a voice. She believed he understood that making a comeback wasn't the hard part. The real issue was the demand for top resources and total contractual freedom, which was practically unheard of for them. Since this was no small matter, she asked for time to discuss it further with her team. While Shia didn't give a flat refusal, her tone suggested that his terms were nearly impossible to meet. He told her they were free to discuss it, but he wanted to make his own stance clear. It wasn't just about the current problem they were facing. He was offering a much larger partnership. Whether they needed songs or even scripts of any genre in the future, he promised to provide them whenever they asked. He truly hoped they could find a way to work together successfully. After all, hadn't they invited him here specifically to test his abilities? Now that he was here, he suggested they see what he was truly capable of before making a final decision. He spoke with a quiet confidence that seemed unshakable. Shia looked at him deeply. She had never met someone quite so self-assured, especially not someone with his particular reputation. Was this really the man the world dismissed as a mere pretty boy? It seemed the rumors were quite mistaken. Imagine the irony of the public's perception versus the man standing before her. Ultimately, Shia left in a hurry after the meal to consult with her company. Before departing, she handed him a room card and told him to wait for her news. That was the last thing she said before she disappeared. Once he reached his hotel room, he freshened up and lay on the bed, weighing his options for the future. If Fanching Entertainment didn't work out, he would simply try other companies. And if all else failed, he figured he could just work a bit harder, earn the money, and start his own agency. He could lead Yuchu to success on his own terms. He hadn't even noticed how much his mindset had shifted lately, from wanting a quiet, lazy life to working tirelessly for her sake. In their short time together, he had begun to care for her and her family more than he realized. He was no longer just an observer. He was becoming a part of their small world. Shia's call finally came at 3 in the afternoon. She was already downstairs and informed him that they needed to head over to the Fanching building together immediately. Without another word, he headed down to meet her. And so, the next stage of their plan was about to begin as they set off toward the heart of the entertainment world. We see that Fanching Entertainment is located in the most prosperous district of the Magic City, a place where dreams are manufactured. Inside, several managers have gathered, and Zhang Hao's expression is particularly sour as he addresses the chairman, Li Tian, and Vice Minister Li. He admits he respects their business acumen, but feels they are placing far too much importance on this man, Lu Fan, who was once just a nobody. To be honest, he finds the demands utterly ridiculous and feels they are simply wasting their time. In response to Zhang Hao's complaints, Li Tian merely folds his hands. With a kind smile, the chairman suggests they should give young people a chance. They will test his talent first, and if he fails, he is sure his daughter won't object. Seeing the chairman's grandfatherly demeanor, Zhang Hao can only swallow his frustration, though deep down, his mind is racing with silent protests. He grumbles to himself that this is clearly just favoritism because the girl involved is the chairman's daughter. Li Tian, noticing Zhang Hao sulking, simply smiles again. As the head of the company, he doesn't just blindly follow his daughter's wishes. He had actually listened to those 2 songs himself, and they were, quite frankly, perfect. However, he feels no need to explain himself to Zhang Hao. As for whether the songs were truly written by the young man, well, the truth would soon come to light. It was time to see if he was a thoroughbred or just a show pony. Just then, Shia leads Lu Fan into the meeting room. From the moment he enters, he spots several world-famous stars, each a leader in their own field. This is, after all, one of the industry's big 3. The sheer luxury of the place is enough to make anyone feel small. As he steps into the room, he can feel every single pair of eyes fixated on him. Their gazes are filled with a mix of curiosity and skepticism, yet he naturally takes his seat, facing the crowd with a perfectly calm expression. Li Tian can't help but feel a flicker of admiration. It is rare to see a young man maintain such composure when faced with such an intimidating lineup. The first impression is a good one. Li Tian decides to begin, addressing him as Mr. Lu and noting that they have discussed his unusual requests. He explains that while they can sign Yuchu and provide top-tier resources, the demand for total contractual freedom is a bridge too far. That is something they simply cannot grant, as such a contract doesn't exist in their world. He asks if Lu Fan can understand their position. Lu Fan nods, understanding the industry logic perfectly, and asks about the proposed duration. Li Tian smiles and holds up 5 fingers, 5 years. He promises they will use their best resources to groom her without restricting her creative choices. Lu Fan frowns slightly, meeting the chairman's gaze without a hint of fear. He tells them 5 years is far too long. He is confident that with his talent and their resources, she will be a top-tier star within a single year. He suggests that perhaps it won't even take a year. Therefore, he can only agree to 2 years, with the final year dedicated to bringing the company sufficient profit. During these 2 years, they won't need to worry about Yochu's songs, and he even offers to write a limited number of songs for Fanching for free. Anyone can talk big, but becoming a top star in a year sounds like a dream. As he speaks, we see a balding man sitting next to Shia let out a scoff. The man looks at him with utter contempt, but Lu Fan merely glances at him before turning his attention back to Li Tian, ignoring the provocation entirely. Li Tian narrows his eyes, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the table as the smile on his face grows more pronounced. It seems he is intrigued. He notes that confidence is a good thing in a young man, and while 2 years isn't impossible, it all depends on Lu Fan's actual strength and talent. The chairman explains that part of this meeting is to discuss the terms of their potential cooperation. He wants to see if Lu Fan truly has the ability to back up his claims. Lu Fan nods slightly, knowing this was exactly why he came here today. Li Tian instructs the vice minister to handle the specific details, adding that he will wait for good news. If the song is approved, the contract is as good as signed. With the final decision made, Lu Fan finally relaxes. He stands up to shake hands with Li Tian, marking the end of this high-stakes negotiation. As he leaves the room with Xia, she feels a sense of disbelief. She never imagined her father would agree to such seemingly ridiculous conditions. However, this upcoming event is undeniably important. It is an official government-sponsored activity, and the company with the winning song will gain immense prestige. The benefits of such official favor go without saying. Xia looks at Lu Fan with a complicated expression, her thoughts a whirlwind of hope and doubt. Deep down, she truly hopes he can shock everyone. It would prove her intuition was right and silence the gossip currently circulating through the company. She hands him the details of the event, noting he has only 3 days to create something. She hopes he can actually achieve what he set out to do. She expresses her own desire for their cooperation to succeed as she pulls a document bag from her drawer and hands it over to him. Lu Fan opens the bag, and the first thing he sees is a bold, striking title, Ordinary Heroes. Upon seeing these words, his expression immediately turns serious. The office falls into a heavy silence, broken only by the sound of him flipping through the pages. This is the most solemn we have seen him since his journey began. He turns the page to find several photographs. The first shows a group of doctors and nurses clad in protective gear, looking exhausted but determined. The second photo depicts 3 firefighters standing before a massive fire they have just extinguished, while the third shows several individuals who are clearly warriors seen only from behind, their faces hidden. The fourth photo shows a collapsing school building, where a teacher is handing a child to someone outside. Behind that teacher, the room is empty. He is the last one left. After Lu Fan finishes reading every document, he organizes them one by one. He puts them away and takes a deep breath. It is then that Xia breaks the heavy silence of the office, asking if he can really do this. She reminds him he has only 3 days before the selection process ends. Lu Fan simply nods, telling her to rest easy and leave it to him. He promises that within 3 days, he will give them, and those heroes, a satisfactory answer. He stands up and packs the files away. He asks her to prepare some manuscript paper so he can study everything back at the hotel. Xia doesn't hesitate, knowing how difficult this task is. She knows creating a masterpiece in 3 days is nearly impossible. By 9 o'clock that night, after a shower, Lu Fan sits down at his desk. We fast forward to the next meeting, where Xia asks what he has written. He smiles and tells her he has already finished. Under Xia's shocked gaze, he hands her the manuscript, suggesting she take a look and see if this song will suffice. Xia looks at him as if he were a monster. For once, her professional composure slips as she wonders if he is joking about writing a song in one night. She worries he might be just throwing something together, so she frowns and takes the paper. Just yesterday, she thought this young man was remarkably steady. Now, it feels as though he is testing her faith. She decides to see exactly what kind of work can be produced in a single evening. Xia fixes her gaze on the manuscript. She remains calm when she sees the title, but as she slowly reads through the lyrics, her expression shifts. She is utterly stunned. The lyrics are divine, describing the ordinary in every line, yet revealing the extraordinary through every word. The word hero is never mentioned, yet every sentence screams of heroism. It hits the theme perfectly. Eagerly, Xia turns her attention to the musical score. She studies the composition, her heart racing as she realizes the sheer quality of the melody he has crafted. Lu Fan asks if the song will work. Xia's eyes grow increasingly bright as she stares at him, telling him he is truly incredible. She feels her intuition has been vindicated. She asks if he can sing it for her, wanting to hear the actual effect of the piece. He nods and closes his eyes. After taking a moment to find the right emotion, he begins to sing softly about a day when one might wander far, yet hope to meet again. When he finishes, Xia remains lost in the music, unable to pull herself away until Lu Fan clears his throat twice to bring her back to reality. Coming back to her senses, she hurriedly wipes away the traces of tears. His eyes grow brighter, so brilliant that it feels almost wrong to give him further instructions. He asks with a hint of uncertainty if the song will work. It's more than enough, she replies, amazed that young Lu Fan could deliver such a massive surprise. Suddenly, the office door opens. Li Tian walks in while clapping his hands, his face clearly showing how impressed he was by what he just heard. Behind him follows Zhang Hao, the head of human resources, who looks utterly shocked. To be honest, he can hardly believe his own ears. He can't fathom how Lu Fan produced such a perfect song in so little time. Xia, looking flustered, asks her father why he didn't knock before entering. Seeing her father, Xia tries to hide her emotions, secretly wiping her tears again while complaining about the sudden intrusion. Li Tian shows no remorse, continuing to smile, though the way he looks at his precious daughter is a bit peculiar. It's a look of quiet realization. He hasn't seen his daughter act this way in a long time. He jokes that if he hadn't come in, he wouldn't have known about this masterpiece. We see Lu Fan remain silent as his title shifts from Mr. Lu to young friend Lu. It seems that for a businessman, anyone who brings profit is family. Lu Fan modestly replies that as long as Chairman Li is satisfied, that is all that matters. I am very satisfied, the chairman declares warmly. He explains that once the song is selected by Hua-yin, the contract with Shin Yuchu will be signed immediately. Things are finally moving forward. To put Lu Fan's mind at ease, Li Tian suggests they sign a preliminary cooperation agreement right now. He smiles, nodding in approval. Lu Fan finally breathes a sigh of relief, knowing the deal is practically done. The group signs the agreement right there in the office. As long as the song is chosen, the partnership he discussed with Fanqing Entertainment will begin. It is a pivotal moment for everyone involved. Once the signing is complete, Lu Fan takes his leave. He tells Chairman Li that since the matter is settled, he will be on his way. Li Tian expresses his hope for a happy future partnership. Lu Fan nods slightly, takes the agreement, and turns toward the office door. Seeing him about to leave, Xia suddenly offers to walk him out. We notice she has been avoiding his gaze for a few moments now. She seems a bit embarrassed by her earlier fangirl reaction, which, for a professional woman like her, is quite a rare sight indeed. As he prepares to depart, there is a hint of lingering reluctance in her expression, but then, her father interrupts the moment. Li Tian reminds her that she still has unfinished work and that Lu Fan isn't a child who needs an escort. Lu Fan turns his head back one last time. Lu Fan politely declines Minister Li's kindness, saying he can simply take a taxi back. With that, he turns and exits the office, gently closing the door behind him. As he strides away, the atmosphere inside the office shifts. Xia is now bristling like an angry kitten, demanding to know what her father meant by his behavior. She scolds him for dismissing someone who just delivered a masterpiece. Zhang Hao, still in the room, feels the tension rising and finds the scene quite unnerving. Swallowing hard, Zhang Hao hurriedly makes his excuses, claiming he has urgent work to handle before quickly bidding them both farewell. Without waiting for Li Tian to respond, Zhang Hao vanishes out the door. It is only once he is safely outside that he finally wipes the cold sweat from his brow. Back inside, Li Tian remains calm despite his daughter's glare. He speaks with a heavy, earnest tone, reminding Xia that she is no longer a child. He admits that young Lu Fan is impressive, but he pointedly reminds her that the man is married, and, as far as he knows, he even has a daughter. Xia falls silent for a moment before replying coldly. She insists she is well aware, and that her offer to walk him out was merely professional courtesy. She claims it was that simple, her icy demeanor returning in full force. To be honest, even her father feels a bit intimidated by this sudden shift in her aura. Li Tian quickly backs down, claiming he suddenly remembered he has work to do as well. He makes a hasty retreat toward the exit. However, just as he steps out, he pokes his head back in one last time. He tells her quite seriously that at 26, she really should find a partner. She tells him to get out, and he jokingly agrees to vanish immediately. Meanwhile, Lu Fan has just returned to his hotel and hasn't even booked his flight yet. That is when Xia calls him. She apologizes for her father's blunt tone, her voice carrying a trace of lingering frustration over the earlier interruption. We see Lu Fan react with a bit of surprise. In truth, he hadn't taken the matter to heart at all, as he found Li Tian's words to be quite tactful. He assures her that everything is fine and that he didn't feel there was anything wrong with the conversation. He tells her not to worry about it. Hearing this, Xia's tone softens considerably. She is relieved he isn't offended and asks if he is currently on his way back to the hotel. Lu Fan informs her that he has already arrived. He explains that he plans to pack his things and book a flight back to Jiangcheng as soon as possible. There is a brief silence on the other end of the line. It seems Xia has something else on her mind before he departs. She suggests that it might be best for him to wait a couple more days. If his song is selected, Hua-yin will likely need his direct assistance. Since he wrote both the lyrics and the music, he is the one who understands the soul of the song best. And we know that in this business, timing is everything. Hearing Xia's suggestion, Lu Fan realizes his plans to head home have fallen through, leaving him feeling a bit empty. He simply sighs and agrees. He decides to stay a few more days until further notice. After hanging up with Xia, he sets his phone down with a trace of regret and looks away. Watching the scenery fly past the window, he finds himself missing the little one back home. At the thought of Wanwan, a smile creeps onto his face. It is almost as if they share a psychic connection, because at that exact moment, Shin Yuchu calls. He answers the phone immediately. Wanwan's voice instantly chirps from the other end, asking if it's her daddy. Even though he can't see her, the image is clear in his mind. A warm, doting smile breaks across his face as he confirms it's him, asking the little girl if she misses her father. She says she does. She adds that mommy wants to know when he is coming back. At home, Wanwan is snuggled in Yochu's arms, holding the phone with both hands. Yochu's face flushes a deep crimson as she gives the little girl a helpless look. After all, it was Wanwan who insisted on calling him. She wonders why the child is dragging her into this now, as she certainly never asked that question. Lu Fan tells her to tell mommy he needs a few more days. He chuckles to himself, suspecting the little one is using Yuchu as an excuse because she's the one who really wants him back. Wanwan is clearly displeased by the news, whimpering and grumbling into the phone. Lu Fan's lips curl into a smile as he shifts his position. He lies comfortably on the bed and asks if she has been eating her meals properly. Hearing this, Wanwan looks up guiltily at her mother. Like a little thief, she lowers her head and whispers that she has, but admits she much prefers her father's cooking. The little girl sounds so incredibly serious that even the eavesdropping Yuchu finds her anger melting away into disbelief. She wonders how such a small child learned to be so clever, indirectly complaining about her mother's cooking. Then, she hears Lu Fan laughing loudly. In an instant, Yochu's face turns even redder. She suddenly grabs the phone, declaring that the chat with Daddy is over for today. She quickly clarifies that she wasn't the one asking about his return. Lu Fan just laughs, asking if everything at home is alright. Yuchu feels even more annoyed, certain that he is holding back a laugh. She snaps that he's only been gone a day, so nothing is wrong. She tells him she has to go make lunch and prepares to hang up. Lu Fan protests, saying he hasn't talked to the little one enough yet. But Shin Yuchu doesn't give him the chance, ending the call right then and there. To be honest, she probably just needed to hide her blushing face. Watching Wanwan stare at the phone with a look of lingering regret, Shun Yuchu decides that for lunch today, she will serve the little girl's least favorite vegetable. Small green bok choy. After all, children shouldn't be picky eaters. Meanwhile, Lu Fan hears the dial tone and, despite the sudden silence, a smile remains on his face. This is the first time we see Yuchu showing such a playful, temperamental side. In the past, she always carried a certain heavy, stifling air about her. One might say she lacked a soul of her own, but now, that situation is slowly improving. To be honest, seeing her become herself again is a wonderful change. Waiting is always a long process, and in just a few days, August will be upon them. For now, the passage of time feels slow but steady. At least Shia has stopped calling him sir with every breath, which used to make him feel quite awkward. He spends these days as usual, waking up early for his morning run. Everything seems calm on the surface, and since news from the wine company hasn't arrived yet, he can only wait. By the evening of the third day, however, he receives a call from a number that feels both strange and familiar. A voice asks if it's old Lu, identifying himself as Chun Sheng. Lu Fan quickly sifts through the memories of his previous life. This was the original Lu Fan's best friend from university. Madman, long time no see, he replies, recalling the man's character. Remembering Chun Sheng's loyalty and personality, Lu Fan smiles as he speaks. Deep down, he realizes that having a genuine friend might actually be quite nice. Chen Sheng immediately begins scolding him, asking what happened after he got married. No calls, no texts. He wonders if Lu Fan has started looking down on his brothers. The tone is accusatory, yet the underlying concern is so clear it warms Lu Fan's heart. He can only blame his predecessor for being so short-sighted. The original Lu Fan had been so busy trying to flatter people like Qin Shuai and Yi Tian that he had no time for his best friend. A classic mistake, really. It was my fault, Lu Fan admits, asking for forgiveness and promising to treat him to a meal to make amends. He speaks sincerely, trying to bridge the gap. Inwardly, he curses the original owner of this body once more for being unable to distinguish between real friends and ghosts. It's quite embarrassing for the new Lu Fan. Chun Sheng laughs, agreeing to catch up properly next time before hanging up. Just as that call ends, Li Xia rings him with some significant news. His song has been selected by Huayin. According to Xia, the scouts there took just one look at his submission and picked it out from thousands of entries. Xia's voice is thick with excitement. By the time she calls, she has already arrived at the entrance of his hotel, eager to share the details in person. She explains that Huayin wants to film a music video and needs him, the songwriter, on site for guidance. When he heads downstairs, Xia is waiting for him. As she sees him, she brushes a stray lock of hair from her forehead, her eyes shimmering with a certain light. Lu Fan simply rubs his nose, choosing to ignore the look. He tells her it's getting late and they should finish early to catch lunch, before climbing into the back seat without a second thought. Xia wonders if the front seat was somehow too small for him. She mentions that the director in charge of the music video has been praising him constantly. She asks if he has any specific ideas for the video or the lead singer, clearly worried he might freeze up when they arrive. To be honest, she's quite anxious. Lu Fan tells her not to worry, as he has everything under control. Looking at his face, one can't see even a hint of nervousness. Xia glances at him through the rearview mirror and, seeing his genuine calm, finally drops the subject. 2 hours later, they pull into a large office building's parking lot. The two of them walk into the building side by side. It seems Xia had made an appointment in advance, as they aren't alone for long. As soon as they enter, a group of people comes forward to greet them. Xia exclaims, asking Grandpa Lin why he came down personally, fearing her father's reaction. She rushes forward and takes the leading elderly man's hand, acting quite spoiled. This sudden display of affection gives Lu Fan a bit of a shock. Seeing Xia act like this is a rare sight indeed. The old man's face breaks into a doting smile as he addresses her as little girl Lin. He tells her to stop the act, joking that her father wouldn't dare scold her. Xia actually blushes, a rare occurrence, before they turn to the business at hand. The old man turns his attention to Lu Fan, remarking that he is truly a talented young man. Lu Fan politely greets the elder in return. He introduces himself as Lu Fan with a respectful nod. The old man is impressed, noting that he is both talented and well-mannered. He says it's no wonder Lu Fan could write such a song and introduces himself as Lin Silly, the director in charge of the music video. He suggests that Lu Fan can call him Grandpa Lin just like Shia does. With a faint smile, Lu Fan graciously accepts the offer. Director Lin is delighted and suggests they head upstairs immediately. He is so excited that he grabs Lu Fan's hand and leads him toward the elevator. He seems to have no intention of introducing the other people behind him. Lu Fan is forced to follow, though he still nods politely to the middle-aged staff members. The elevator rises directly to the 20th floor. As soon as they step out, Director Lin pulls him straight into the recording studio. He mentions that Shia praised Lu Fan's singing and asks if he can perform. After all, they've only seen the sheet music and haven't heard the vocals yet.